Hi there, YouTube. Let's bring our friends in over at Twitch. Start the recording here. And here we go. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Stratosphere Lounge Friday edition. It's your host, Bill Whittle, here on the 24th of May, 2024. A couple little quick items before we get into the questions. There's rumors that there are great questions tonight, and they're always great, so these have to be specially great, especially superly great. So looking forward to getting into that. It's I just don't know what to say other than to just tell you this strange, kind of shocking story. So I put on a fair amount of weight in a short period of time, and I was retaining some fluid, in my ankles, and so I went to see my family doctor, Dr. Gold. Now, Dr. Gold is terrific. Natasha found him. He's a Russian doctor living in Los Angeles, down in Santa Monica. And the reason we liked him so much is because it's like what medicine used to be. Instead of you got 2.5 minutes, give me everything you got, and then I'll send you out with a paper for some tests, and then we'll look at the tests, and then we'll send you to a specialist. He sat down and chatted for when we first went in there, 45 minutes, I guess. So it was real old school kind of stuff, and really terrific doctor. So when I got back from Coeur d'Alene, I scheduled an appointment. We went down there on the 13th, I want to say, Monday, I think it was. Natasha had been having some problems with vertigo. I'll get to that in a second, too. So I went on down there and sat and talked with him, and, last time I'd had a cardiac stress test was 2017 or something, so time for a new one. So he recommended that, and he basically took 3 tubes of blood, as they usually do, because they take their money plus they take their blood. So that was on the 13th. We're supposed to go back and see him again to get this recommendation for cardiologist 2 weeks after that. But a few days ago, Natasha told me that my general practitioner, Dr. Gold, had died of a heart attack at age 16. Gone. And that was a big old shock. Big old shock. Really, I couldn't really call him friends exactly, but I was very fond of him, and he was, conservative in Los Angeles because, he's a successful businessman. It kind of leaves you with very little choice. And you could have knocked us both over with a feather. I mean, he's just a terrific man. Really loved the guy. And yeah, it's like, so we have the blood result back. No, that's been delayed because your doctor has died. And I can hear you, Diane Freeman, over in the YouTube chat. So that leaves you with, I don't want to say mixed feelings, obviously, a tremendous amount of sadness and regret. And, we were both in his office 2 days before he died, and he was just usual self, pull up a chair right next to you, ask you about all your problems, and, just basically get it all out, and that's it. It's just hard to deal with, and his practice is called the Gold Vitality Center because he not only was an excellent general practitioner, but he had a lot of stuff on. You could go there and get your telomeres tested, and lots of stuff on longevity and things like that. It's just bam. Yeah, Dave Big Booty says, not the day nor the hour. Exactly. And so, yeah. And we knew, I I wasn't there a lot, but I'd been going there for 7 or 8 years. And we got, we knew all the nurses and the receptionists there and stuff. I just wonder what happens to them. He's obviously a medical doctor. You're a responsible individual. I guess it's not necessarily true, but certainly most of them are. He certainly was. So I imagine he had had some kind of preparations in place, but all of a sudden, all these people that we knew and were very, very kind to us and just excellent medical technicians, they're out of a job. Um, and uh, and who closes, the office in a situation like that? So so we have to find a new general practitioner, and that is a practical problem that doesn't address the personal loss. So yeah. By the way, don't worry too much about the fluid retention. I mean, it was bad for all. Tried some new medication, which actually did very well for me, but it caused me to, you know, retain water. So when I stopped taking that, most of it went away. So I'm not too worried about heart valves or anything. It's just time to get the checkup. So, but boy, yeah, we'll schedule you for a cardiologist, Bill, and let's get your blood work back and see how you look, and come see me in 2 weeks, and then 2 days later, gone. So that was really a shock. Natasha herself asked me to bring this up because, even though we don't have a tremendously large audience, we do have a real smart audience, and we also, 6 degrees of separation and connections and stuff. And a lot of times when I've talked about medical issues or psychological issues, a lot of people said it's done them so good. So we were both getting concerned because Natasha was starting to have progressively more frequent and more severe bouts of vertigo. She'd had it many years ago, 25 years ago, back in Sochi, something like that, 25 or 30. Had it worse. So we went back and talked to Dr. Gold about that, and I thought he was gonna, Natasha was worried. I wasn't as worried as she was, but we're thinking, what do we need? We need a CAT scan or MRI, brain scan, that kind of thing. So he had prescribed for her a physical therapist, and I thought, physical therapist for vertigo, that's interesting. And it was getting worse and worse and worse, and she was getting really quite concerned about it, and so was I. Road Rider asked, how's her hearing? Her hearing's fine. She didn't have any ear infections. However, I mentioned it in passing to Shelley, our office manager, and she said, do you think maybe she's got ice in the ear or something? I said, what? I think that's what it's called. I think it's ice in the ear, ice on the ear, something like that. I've never heard of it, so I went and searched for ice on the ear. She said, no responses came back. She said, sorry, crystals in the ear. So I went and searched for that. And what do you know? It came back a perfect match. The technical term for this is BPPV, and I'll just tell you what this is. It's benign paroxysmal positional vertigo. So the benign means it's not a tumor, it's not cancer, it's not growth, it's not anything that's hurting you other than the fact that the vertigo can cause you to fall down. Paroxysmal means it comes on very quickly, like a spasm or so on. Positional vertigo means that it's dependent on your head position. And sure enough, if Natasha would look down, or sometimes she's getting up in the morning, she really starts spinning badly. So we thought, okay, and then did a check online, and hang on a second, for this thing, and turns out that, and this is for those of you who may know somebody who has vertigo or has had problems with vertigo, but turns out there's something called the Epley maneuver, and it is so shockingly simple that it's almost comical. And basically, what happens is, tinnitus. I've got tinnitus, very, very bad tinnitus. I've had it since I worked on a nightclub. It's just my entire top end is gone, and my entire life consists of most of the time I filtered out. The second you said tinnitus, I thought, there it is. Yep. Or tinnitus, as some people, it seems tinnitus sounds more medical to me. So here's the thing, though. What happens is there's a little, obviously your balance is set up by these cochlear vessels. There's 3 little blood vessels in each one of your ears, 3 tubes, and it's set up like a gyroscope, and that's exactly what it is. So inside these 3 like perpendicular blood vessels in your inner ear are these tiny little cilia, tiny little hair. And when you turn your head, the fluid doesn't move because it's a fluid. So it is, in fact, very much like a gyroscope. So when you turn your head or bend over or go sideways, you start falling, the fluid wants to stay where it is, and your head and body turns around it. And that tickles the little cilia, and that sends a signal to your brain, which has gotten very good at balancing, doing the whole biped thing. And so basically what this BPPV is that there's a small little crystals that can form in the ear. And if they get inside those ear canals, then they can occasionally brush against these cilia, and what it essentially does is it gives it a much stronger signal, much stronger. So so we thought, okay, and I saw this thing for something called the Epley maneuver, and then I looked at like 2 or 3 videos for this. And honestly, guys, I'm just telling this in case you happen to know anybody. Every single comment across 2 or 3 videos was, "This is miraculous." There were people who had gone down the path that we look like we might be going down. Your brain scan and your anti-nausea medication and anti-dizziness medication, which has a side effect of dizziness, and prolonged use can lead to potential dementia. And all it is you. If anybody has this, you really need to look up Epley maneuver, because it is magic. It takes about 4 minutes. So basically what happens is you lie on your back with something supporting your neck so that the back of your head is touching the mattress, and you turn your head. If you've got a problem in the left ear, you turn your head 45 degrees to the left. I think that's right. Just look up Epley maneuver. It's a 90-second video. And you lie like this with your head back like this, 45 degrees, and then after 60 seconds or longer if you feel a little dizzy, but when the dizziness goes 30 to 60 seconds, you turn your head to the right, 40 to 45 degrees to the right, and that can cause things swirling, and you settle that down, wait another 30 to 60 seconds, and then with your head like this, you roll over onto your side, and then touch your chin onto the mattress. And when we did that last night with Natasha, she just screamed. She just I'm holding her hand, lying down in bed, and I'm there the whole time, and she just lost it, because she was sure that she was falling right off the bed. And I'm just like, hang in there, honey, hang in there. All of these people in these video comments said that it had a miraculous effect. Many of them said one treatment did it. So in this one video, we saw a 90-second video on how to do this. The physical therapist said, if you're feeling dizzy when you do this, that's good. That's a good sign. Well, dizzy is not the word for it. Natasha she was like clawing at the air. It was really scary for her. Then you just, you let that settle aside, and then you just sit up, keep your chin down, slowly look up, and half of the comments said one treatment did it. And you know what? One treatment did it. We did another one today with almost no effect. We'll do it the other side later on tonight, but it's cured. It's gone, and it costs $0. You can do it by yourself. The whole exercise takes maybe 5 minutes, maybe, and what it basically does is the physical therapist figured out that these positions of your head, when you do these things, kind of causes the crystals to go in some kind of sump or something. But basically takes them out of your inner ear. And I got to tell you, I really am very happy to see something that is that effective, costs $0 money, works right away. So there you go. Darth Chuck the Merciless wants to know if Natasha will be going to Oshkosh. She will not be. I will be for 5 days. So got that going. There's going to be a public service for Dick on. I just did the invitation. Hang on a second. sorry, at Coeur d'Alene Airport, and then there'll be something big at Oshkosh. Saturday, June 29th at Coeur d'Alene Airport, and we'll put up invitations for anybody who wants to go. But anyway, yeah, so interesting news from the world of medicine there, you know. I was just astonished at how effective that was. So if you know anybody who's got vertigo or has bouts of dizziness, I can highly recommend looking up PPV and then the Epley maneuver. It genuinely, honest to God, magic. So that's always nice when you can pass that kind of news around. This is more of a Stratosphere Studio topic, but just very briefly, once again, I just kind of cruising through the YouTube world while I'm doing other work. It doesn't require a whole lot of thinking. And Epley, E-P-L-E-Y. And let me make double sure about that. Yeah, E-P-L-E-Y. So I was poking around and just needed something to listen to, and I just stumbled upon something that had a title that interested me. And let me find this. And the title was, again, this is more of a Stratosphere Studios thing, but it is what it is. The title was The Spectacular Failure of the Star Wars Hotel, which is their Star Wars Galactic Cruiser at Disney World, which was catastrophically awful. And this video was an in-depth look at it, and the video was 4 hours, 5 minutes, 39 seconds long. And it was done by this young YouTuber named Jenny Nicholson, who looks like she's in her early 20s. And that kid has got real talent, because I was interested in the subject, but she just talked for 4 hours and 5 minutes, 38 seconds or whatever, and I was on board the whole way. I've been very interested in the Galactic Cruiser thing for a number of reasons. It's an intersection of a lot of different parts of my life. First of all, it's science fiction, obviously. I'm not a super big Star Wars fan, but I've had many thoughts along the lines of the Galactic Cruiser. My dad was a hotel manager. I grew up in hotels, so I know what the surface. No, I didn't listen to it at fast speed, Dave. I just listened to it. She just had me entertained the whole way. Just Jen Zier, and she's just terrific. It's on its way to 4 million views in just a couple days. It's really, really, if you're interested in not only in Galactic Cruiser and Star Wars and what Disney's done to Star Wars, but it's a master class, really, in how to really screw over your customers. I mean, really, really, really screw them over. First of all, the Daily Wire subscription thing is still open. I haven't got it scheduled yet. I'm sorry about that. But it is. The window has not opened, let alone not yet closed. So, anyway, so just wanted to cover that. So I will let you know as soon as I get it lined up. So here's basically what interested me about it. When they started talking about the concept, they did a couple of promotional videos Disney did that were so shockingly tone deaf. They were so unbelievably tone deaf that I literally couldn't believe that any corporation, let alone one of the biggest corporations in the world, would put out something that was that cringe. And you had all of these mid-level executives talking about immersion and how everybody will be able to live their own Star Wars adventure and how everything's going to be customized and all the rest of this stuff. And I thought, even before they built it and they started doing concept art, when I first saw these people talking about it, I said to myself, there's not a person in this room that knows what a role-playing game is. There's not a person in this room's ever played a role-playing game. There's nobody in this room who I think has any kind of background in Star Wars specifically, or science fiction in general. And they're just throwing these buzzwords back and forth, and they're all just nodding and nodding and nodding. So then they come out with the some of the promotional art and some of the stuff, and it turns out that it's a 2-day stay in the hotel, and with a brief excursion to the Star Wars village in Disney World. You basically stay in the hotel. It's like a cruise. Hey, shout out to Atlanta back, Speaker Steve, and also to Australia we saw earlier. So you stay in this science fiction themed, Star Wars themed hotel for 2 days, and it costs only $6,000 per person per room. So if you have 2 people, it's $3,000 per person for 2 nights, and 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 the rooms are unbelievably tiny. And this girl, she just put nails in it. It's like, this is much more than what Disney charges for their top of the line cruise. And on the cruise, you get this. Here's what the rooms look like. Here's what a luxury room looks like, and it was just such trash. It's just such trash. And when I saw the concept art, and then I saw the actual, they got influencers to come down and rave about how great it is because they got there for free, and that whole thing, that whole paid YouTube influencer thing where, they bring you down there, pay your way, and in exchange for this, you just gush. They did a video with some guy who's on a sitcom or something, and he was doing, I can't wait to get inside. And it's like, surely you're doing an impression of somebody. No, he was serious. He was, oh, this is awesome. Really, dude? Honestly? And then this video, she just dissects it, just dissects it, and does it so well. Just really, really interesting. Jenny Nicholson, she doesn't need my promotion. Generally gets 4 or 5 million views on pretty much everything she does. But she really really got to the heart of it in terms of this. So here's basically the short form. The final question was it worth it? It's like, no, it was not worth it. And what she was saying was that the whole thing happens on your app. There's nothing that you do that causes any kind of interaction in the real world. You might as well play the app at home. They didn't keep track of your name. They didn't you're supposed to pick one of these pathways. They didn't do that. Simple things. Like you have to buy a dinner reservation for the dinner show, and they put her behind a pillar, behind this huge column. And she's filming the column, and she can't see anything that's on stage no matter how far she moves from one side to another. She bought a droid, which they lost, and then she tweeted that she lost the droid, and she's got lots and lots of followers. I don't know how many, but she tweeted that her droid had not shown up, and that Disney had told her basically there's nothing they can do. And the next day, the toy droid that she got was like overnighted to her. The next day. And all of this bending over backwards to make these influencers happy. But here's the thing about it. She said 2 or 3 times, I was able to get some kind of satisfaction or a resolution because I've got a lot of followers. And that's not fair. And she just talked about how miserable the experience was. And I'm not going to bore you with all the details. It's worth watching if you're interested in these things. But the short form is this. What Disney did was they cut every single corner that they possibly could. They didn't put in any animatronics. They didn't put in a whole lot of character actors. The apps didn't work. The tracking the people, the interaction with the characters, none of it worked. Nothing worked at all. And her biggest point was, she said it's like flying Spirit Airlines, except it's costing you, Air France prices. You're paying $6,000 for 2 people for 2 nights. And she says they charge you for the ride from the hotel. They used to offer that free, pick you up at the Orlando hotel, take you to a Disney hotel. They charge you extra for, for certain kinds of drinks. They charge you extra for the gift shop, obviously. They charge you for the captain's table if you want to sit in the middle of the room. They just hit you again and again and again and again and again and again and again. And when you get down to it, you realize that what Disney has become, and I don't want to open this up, Eric, it's not a question of saving Disney, this is what Disney is now. Their entire business model now is essentially take people's money while people still feel like there's an attachment to Disney World, take their money, and they'll never come back again, and that's a business model. It's just, once they've already spent the money, then you've got their money. So why go to the trouble to make it good? Why go to the trouble to make it good? And every single corner that they could have cut, they cut. The whole, I mean, they're supposed to be, you're supposed to get lightsaber training, and they put you in this cheesy little room, this cheesy little set, and a laser comes out of a hole, and you're supposed to block the laser beam, and it's like this. They have this thing in the bridge where the only part of the entire hotel that's got big screens, all the concept art shows these huge windows, so you feel like you're in space. No windows. And the whole thing from start to finish was just an exercise in corporate cynicism. And as a guy who comes from a hotel manager and understands, my dad was a top-notch, is excellent hotel manager. And I've said this a few times on the shows before, but here's basically what my dad said. I was there for this. I would just happen to be in the hotel. I was probably 7 or 8 years old. And a group of American business students had come in, and they were all postgraduate, and they were all studying for hotel management. It's kind of a hotel management school. So they come down to visit this Carlton Beach Hotel in Bermuda, which was just doing bang-up business, and my dad had turned that place around from losing money to making a ton of money. And I heard one of them ask him, I said, so who's Mr. Whittle, who's the most important employee in the hotel? And they're all expecting him to say, well, the manager, obviously, because he's the manager, and they all want to be managers. And my dad said, oh, it's no question about that. That's easy. It's the doorman. Without question, it's the doorman. What? Oh, yeah. Yeah, Robert, our doorman, he's the best in the business. Robert will greet somebody come out of a taxi, and he may not have seen them for 9 years. He'll remember the names, the first names, the last names. He'll remember the children. He'll remember about how old they are. And the first thing that these people get when they open that door is the sense that they've come back home, that they've come to a place that cares about them and a place that remembers them and is doing everything it can to make them happy. He's worth his weight in gold. And I thought, Chase, that's genius management, It really is just genius management. And to watch, it's not just watching Disney go down, it's just watching this entire attitude, this short-term gain, long-term loss kind of attitude. Basically, what the Galactic Star Cruiser was it was selling the undercoating, it was selling the anti-rust undercoating on a Jaguar. You've got this super expensive car, and then this car salesman is needling you to buy the frickin' undercoat and the rust protection and all these other add-on things and the warranty extensions and all this crap, and then you drive the car off and it's just garbage, and it's unspeakably unprofessional and stupid. Plus, the whole role-playing thing is, you got Star Wars fans there, and all the Star Wars fans were really determined to be Star Wars fans. They were kind of, lapping up whatever there was. But just as one great example, she was talking about other attractions or something. I saw, we went to Universal Studios here in LA, and I'm not a Harry Potter fan, but we did the Harry Potter world, and you go to these various places, and there's little secret markers on the ground, and if you move your wand in a certain way, then a treasure chest opens or something like that happens. In the Star Wars thing, all you do is scan QR codes on boxes of cargo. You got to find these 9 different boxes of cargo. Scan. When you get the last one, what happens? Ding! Congratulations, you've completed your mission. Nothing. They cut every single corner they possibly could. And you're supposed to be having this interactive experience with Star Wars characters, but they limited the cast members to 8 hours a day. You're staying remember, you can't really leave the hotel. You're there 24/7. So it's just really, it's just infuriating is what it is. It's just genuinely infuriating. And I'm seeing this in more and more places. When I first got to LA in 88, somewhere around 89 or 90, what was the name of that place? I forgotten now. There was a restaurant chain that I liked a lot, and there was one here in LA. So we went and went in and ordered. I ordered lunch. It was lunch. Went in and ordered a soup and a sandwich, and So I ordered like I don't know, BLT with a tomato soup and Daltz and half a soup, half sandwich kind of thing. She said, great. And I said, but that comes on wheat, right? Correct? She said, yes. I said, can I get that on white, please? She said, no, we can't do that. You can't do that? No. Do you have white bread in the restaurant? Yeah, we've got white bread back there, but this soup and the sandwich thing comes on wheat. The sandwiches aren't pre-made though, are they? No. So you can't make it on white. You have to make it on wheat. Yep, can't make it on white. Have to have it on wheat. Okay. So I got my club sandwich on wheat, and I never went back there again. And I never would. They're out of business now. I wonder why. And this kind of thing is so short-sighted and awful. Again, not to go back to the story I've told a few times, but it just bears telling, and especially in relation to this. I was 6 or 7 years old. I know a lot of you have heard this. You can make your own sandwich now on whatever bread you choose. But I was sitting at the dinner table, and we would eat dinner down at the hotel probably once or twice a week. And round tables, and I was sitting closest to the adjoining table, and I was 6 or 7 or something, and I'm just listening, and I hear somebody order. They're going around the other table, and this guy orders filet mignon or something like that. And okay, so time goes by. I didn't even think anything of it. I wasn't eavesdropping. I just remember it's what he ordered. And sorry, he ordered chicken marsala. We got to get the story right. He ordered chicken marsala. So time goes by. The waiter brings chicken marsala, puts the chicken marsala down, and the guy says, "What's this?" It's a chicken marsala, sir. It's what you ordered. He said, "I didn't order this. I ordered the filet mignon." And the waiter is saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, sir. It seems to be some mistake." And my dad, like a friggin', just like a laser beam, just like he's out of his chair before the guy could finish his sentence. Walks over there, got his evening jacket on with his tuxedo thing, sharp-looking dude, and he just kind of leaned in and he said, "Hi, I'm Bill Whittle. I'm the manager here at the Cotton Beach. It seems like we've made some kind of mistake. Is there an error in your dinner?" And the guy says, "Yes, I ordered the filet mignon. They brought out the chicken marsala." And I start saying, "Dad, you didn't order this." He's like, "Be quiet." And so my dad said, "Oh, well, that's I'm terribly sorry about that mistake, especially since it's going to cause a little bit of delay. Mario's Italian waiter said, could you please go ahead and put a rush order for a filet mignon? How would you like us to run medium rare? Blah blah. Okay, and we'll get that out to you right away. And in the meantime, it'd be my pleasure to buy the table a round of drinks to make up for the inconvenience and for the delay, and we'll get that out to you as fast as we possibly can." I was like, "Well, okay, thank you very much." So my dad sits down. They have a lovely dinner. They get up. They thank my dad. They leave. The second they're out of there, I lean over to my dad, 6, 7 years old or whatever, still haven't figured out these things. And I said, "Dad, he didn't order filet mignon. I heard him. He ordered the chicken marsala. They brought him exactly what he ordered." And my dad said, "I know that, Billy. I know that. I knew that immediately. Mario's, I recruit these people from Europe. Mario's here from Italy. He's one of the best waiters in the world. Doesn't make mistakes like that. I knew that." I said, "So why did you do that?" He said, "Well, here's what happened. I bought him a filet mignon dinner, which probably, you got to remember this is 1966 prices, 67. He said, probably cost me, $8 or whatever. The chicken piccata, which was untouched, went into the back room, and we made sure that either a waiter was off duty or a bus boy got a real nice dinner. We tried to spread that around as much as possible and make mistakes like this. And I bought him a round of drinks, probably $20 for me, so I'm probably out $30. Probably cost me $30 what I just did." He said, "But that man is never going to forget it. He's always going to come back here. A hotel room is a bed, a TV set, and a sliding glass door. And so he will come back, and he'll tell his friends to come back, and they'll tell their friends to come back, And I'm not going to lose $10,000 or $20,000 worth of business in order to save $30. And I just thought, he's genius. It's just genius. Genius. Absolutely 100% how you do it. And the Disney experience there was the antithesis of this. Overcharge, charge for everything, minimal service, minimal everything, and it was open after how much they spent on it, I don't know, but it was open for 18 months and now it's closed. Because what Walt Disney understood people were there to have an experience. They were there to have a good time, and if they weren't having a good time, then he would go out of business. And he put that same metric into his movies. Imagine that. So this is what happens when things become you look at like the history of like rich people in this country, real rich people like Carnegie and those guys. So Carnegie comes to America from Scotland with $24 in his pocket, becomes one of the richest men in the world because he works real hard, builds up this incredible fortune. Then his son manages and maintains the fortune, and then the grandson spends the fortune. Same with the Ford Foundation, same with all of these big families. Because the person who became phenomenally successful understood the market. The second person learned from the first person, but the third person didn't have any experience with what made the money in the first place, so they just thought, well, let's just squeeze this cash cow as hard as we can and wring all the money out of it we possibly can. Next thing you know, it's out of business, and then the fourth generation is poor again, and the big cycle goes around. But Disney is a manufacturer. They manufacture entertainment, and their quality control and the quality of their product has become so appalling. I cannot believe how rapidly Boeing's reputation has been destroyed. It's been, I mean, the incidents with the Max are a couple years old, but really, it's only been a couple months now where the quality of what they're manufacturing has taken such a beating that now people are saying, if it's Boeing, I'm not going. Used to be, if it's not Boeing, I'm not going. The stakes are kind of high there. They're higher even than a $6,000 hotel room. If you're a $600 airline ticket and you're at 35, 40,000 feet, you kind of want to have a good sense that this aircraft has been assembled well by professionals who are committed to making a beautiful, safe, effective airplane, and not as a result of somebody who tried to figure out the cheapest possible way to make this thing, and damn the consequences. Boeing's product is not airplanes. Boeing's product is their reputation. And by cutting corners after this merger with McDonnell Douglas and all the leadership changes and management changes, when they decided to wring as much cash out of this and increase their profit margin, which was substantial, by the way, when they decided that they were going to cut corners on quality in order to make more money, which is exactly what Disney did, they destroyed their product, which is not airplanes, it's reputation. Same thing for Disney. Their product is their reputation. There's thousands of movie makers out there and scores of theme parks. But Disney was Disney because of Disney. And then suddenly it got to be known as what it is today, which is overpriced, underproduced, minimum effort, disdain and contempt, if not open hatred for their audience, and they're going to pay the price because they're not going to get that reputation back. I just don't see how Disney's ever going to get the reputation back, and Boeing is one serious incident away from having an industry-wide meltdown. If Boeing has a serious accident as a result of what could be later shown to be slack standards in manufacturing, then half or more like 2/3 of the domestic aircraft in this country are going to have a label on it that people will refuse to fly. It's not just going to cripple Boeing. What's that going to do to air travel in this country? Because people are not rational about these things. And to be perfectly honest with you, I've always felt safe in a Boeing airplane. I like Boeing much better than Airbus for a number of reasons. But there's that, and then as Roadrunner points out, you've got a couple of whistleblowers who, young middle age, and two of them have died under mysterious circumstances. Now, that could be coincidence, but the circumstances were pretty mysterious. And if it turns out that well, I have to win the election in November, but if it turns out that that we get a Justice Department back again, I would be very, very interested in having a close look at those cases. I'd be very interested in having a close look at the Epstein case. I'd be very interested in having a close look at a lot of things. But the only way to explain this DEI thing, the only way to destroy the destruction of a business through DEI and wokeism with Disney, Boeing, all the rest of them, is there has to be a financial reason why they're doing this. There has to be. It's just kind of my breakthrough on this is like, why is the NFL supporting Colin Kaepernick when the NFL has arguably, if not the most patriotic, then one of the most patriotic audiences and paying customer bases, maybe after NASCAR? Why would they go with the anti-American angle on this, the NFL? What could possibly be worth it? Well, their executives are all, left-wing. Yeah, but that doesn't make sense to ruin the business that way. And then you find out that companies like BlackRock will not loan you money unless you do the DEI song and dance. BlackRock has trillions of dollars in assets. And then you start thinking, okay, so you think that when the NFL or Disney or somebody else like this does something that is so destructive to their customer base that they're not paying attention to the money. And then I realize, no, they are paying attention to the money. The money's just not, the real money is not just in ticket sales for the NFL or in movie tickets or theme park admissions for Disney. The real money is in what is going on financially with these companies that are worth billions and billions of dollars. What's happening to their interest rates, what's happening to their ability to get loans and so on. And I'm convinced that that BlackRock, the most rapacious capitalist company I can think of, is pushing all of the socialist stuff because BlackRock has figured out that the smart play is not to do what has happened my entire life, which is big business versus big government. Somewhere, at least by the time we got to COVID-19, somebody realized, wait a minute, big business and big government working together can both get what they want. And I've been defending business and big business my whole life. I'll defend the free market till the day I drop. But I no longer just automatically and reflexively defend big business just because it's business as opposed to government. I think that they had a meeting and sat down and figured out, hey, why are we at each other's throats? We can get rich, you can get powerful. We'll both have the control that we want. We'll have control over the markets. You'll have control over the votes and the behaviors. Everybody gets their little dopamine hit for telling other people what to do, and there you go. And as Eric points out, China requires these kind of investments. It's cheaper than building what's the dollar value of our military? I mean, we spend $600 billion on it a year, round numbers, and we've been doing that roughly since the start of the Cold War. So what's the dollar value on that? It's significant, and China understands it's much smarter. You don't have to build 11 carrier groups to fight the United States. All you have to do is drop a couple billion here and there in order to get the people who are crewing those submarines and aircraft carriers to no longer have faith in their country and be no longer willing to fight, and might as well be at the bottom of the ocean. I've had that conversation here too many times to repeat it again. But anyway, all of that just to say that it is an entertaining, very entertaining, and for her age, it's just astonishingly intelligent. Not that she's not intelligent, but wise. It's a wise, very wise and finely tuned analysis of why it was so awful. And she's the audience. I mean, she went not to review it. She went because she wanted to have a Disney Star Wars adventure, and And so if she's not happy, she's rooting for him, that kind of thing. So it's really, really good. Okay, let's see what we got on the fabulous, highly touted question board here tonight. I am going to be out of town for the next week. I'll be back either Friday or Saturday. So I will definitely not be here Monday for the Stratosphere Studio next week, and I'm most likely going to have to cancel Stratosphere Lounge as well. I'll update the Facebook page as usual, but Natasha and I are going on a little break for 4 or 5 days, and I'm hoping to be recharged when I come back. I did. Let me deal with that real quick. Marisha, you know what? Yeah, I was going to say let's save it to Monday, but I'm not going to hear Monday. I hate to cross the streams, but this is too good. This is really too good. I'm really glad you reminded me of this. So we're just another quick entertainment thing. I'll get to the questions tonight. So I've been working with blue screens, green screens since I've been doing video, and green screens are tricky. The idea is that it was originally called chroma key when it was worked on straight video before digital age. And basically, television, as being an electronic signal, had the ability to remove a specific color out, just take it out, and have it essentially be clear to whatever the second video signal would be. And this is how you get weathermen standing in front of their weather maps. They're standing in front of a blue screen, they're looking at a monitor off to the side, they're compositing their stuff on there. That's how they do it. All the firewalls are done on a green screen. All of the afterburners were done in a very, very high-tech studio that generated the background set, which was a virtual set, in real time. I looked at a monitor which was showing me against the set, and I don't know how many afterburners I did. It was certainly more than 50, might have been 100 more. And every single one of them, I see what you saw in the final product. I saw me composite. I had to edit it, obviously. Every now and then I'd see the raw footage, and I'm standing in this green cube, and it's like I couldn't believe it was there. So green screen is been how they do special effects for movies and all the rest of it. But green screen has a lot of problems because when you're trying to take that green out, you have essentially two issues to deal with. One of them is with hair, where you've got such tiny little bits of green, and the color kind of breaks up and merges with the hair. So things like hair or like veil, like gauze, something like that, something that's translucent, just doesn't key well. If you take a glass of a bottle of water against a green screen and drink it, then the green will come through the water and the entire bottle disappears. And the green screen throws green light on you, so there's a green rim light, and you got to get rid of that, and you got to mess around with how tight the mat's going to be. It's really a pain in the neck. And Marusha pointed me to a link about yellow screen, amber screen, and I thought, well, what possible advantage could that be? We tried blue screens. People were wearing blue clothes more than green clothes, so they went to green screens. What the hell difference does it make? But I looked at it anyway. The Corridor Crew is a great YouTube channel. A bunch of young guys here in LA who do special effects. And here's what they did that was so bloody interesting to me. They took a look at Mary Poppins, and that's done early 60s, right? And there are scenes in Mary Poppins where Dick Van Dyke is spreading sand, and the sand keys perfectly, and Mary Poppins has got like a veil on, and the veil keys perfectly against these animated cartoon things where they go into the world of the chalk drawings on the street. And these special effects guys are looking at this key. It's clearly a key. They clearly shot against some kind of a background, but it's perfect. It's not only perfect, it's unattainable. No one can make a key like that today. No one, including digital technology, can't do it. Can't come close to it. So these guys saw this and they thought, how the hell did Disney do this? And it turns out that Disney used a yellow screen. I thought, well, yellow screen, what difference does that make? But it's much, much, much more brilliant than that. If you hang a green curtain on a green screen, or just a green sheet or something, it's very, very hard, almost impossible to do the matte. Because even though it's green, it's got a lot of different colors in it. The green screen that I have over there is foam backed so that it doesn't wrinkle, and it's monochromatic. That green light is monochromatic, but you still have to light it and it reflects back. I'm thinking about getting a backlit green screen which solves a lot of these problems. But it wasn't just that they used a yellow screen. It's what they did was they used sodium vapor lamps, which puts out such a specific frequency of yellow that it's damn near a laser. It's almost perfect monochromatic light. And since that one spike on the spectrum of where that sodium vapor color is, it's so specific that if you took just that out, everything else would keep perfectly. And so they tried to recreate it, and Disney did it in real time with a beam splitter. It took an incredible piece of optics, it's lost to history. This double, this kind of double prism where one of the paths is going to create the mat, and the other is going to create the cutout of the mat. Absolutely perfect. And I cannot recommend that video highly enough. It's Corridor Crew, amber screen light or sodium vapor light. But Disney, happy little circle back, Disney invented this in the 60s. And after they forgot it, after the technique went away, no one was able to recreate it because they just forgot about it. And it's only when these special effects guys saw how good that mat was in Mary Poppins that they said, we've got to find out how they did it because we can't do this. And so they did. They recreated the whole thing, and you have to bias the makeup a little bit because there's a little bit of yellow light coming back. But basically, it's perfect. And they have this woman with a veil, and she's drinking water and all this other stuff, and it's just perfect. So, yeah, it's an ugly light, by the way. I remember when we were working at the Southern Cross Observatory atop the old location on the fabulous Museum of Science and Space Transit Planetarium in Miami. And back when I started in 73, 74, Miami was making the change from mercury vapor lights, which are kind of a silvery white, to sodium vapor lights, which are much brighter, but that nasty orange, horrible, nasty color. So it's not a pretty color, but man, it worked perfectly. And all done analog, all done, obviously, digital technology. They would just peel off that one spectrum, that one frequency with the prism, and it would make a perfectly gradiated mat. And I love stories like that. So thanks for reminding me about that. Marisha's putting the link in the YouTube chat, and maybe we'll get it into Twitch. So anyway, on to the questions. But thanks for bringing that up because that was genuinely fascinating. Really was a great story. Meanwhile, last week, as you recall, I got among the many things I have to do. One of them is I want to redo the songs that we play. We play on walking music, which is not recorded. We play TV show themes, and we've been doing the same themes for years and years and years now. And I was thinking, man, you gotta get some new ones. The one show that never gets talked about that I just love so much, really loved, was Wild Wild West. I just thought that show was just absolutely fantastic. Hang on a second, I got a notification here I need to look at. Just one second, please. I'm having a little bit of website problems here. Okay. Anyway, we'll go to the dashboard. I'm sorry, to the forums. Come on now. You can do this, Bill. You got this, Bill. Yeah, so I recommend both of those very highly. Member forum. I do like the new look of this website. I like it very much. Still have to finish the final 15% of this thing. I'm hoping that this trip will reset some circuit breakers for me here. Stratosphere launch questions for 5/23/24, which is being done on 5/24/24 because people asked how Bean is doing, and my cat Bean is doing just fine. They found a a large growth on an X-ray. I thought for sure it's like you've got 3 weeks left. It turns out he's got an enlarged liver, but he's doing just dandy. He does have, because he's a diabetic cat, he has these moments that are relatively frequent, probably once every 10 days or 2 weeks, where he just loses his memory and he doesn't know where he is, and he just scans his head back and forth like a radar dish in the front of a jet aircraft, back and forth, and he just walks slowly around the entire perimeter that's completely lost. It's very alarming. It's really disturbing. And we've just, took him for the doctor. First time it happened, I thought, my God, he's gone for sure, I thought. But he said, no, it's just sometimes he has these blood sugar excursions. And so I'm used to this taking 20 minutes, 25 minutes for him to recover. Last time when I rushed him to the hospital a month ago, he was flat down, and they ran him in there and they said, trying to measure his blood sugar, and we're not getting any reading at all. So it was touch and go there for a while. But so he has these blood sugar crashes, and they said, try and get some sugar in it. So this time he goes down. This was 2 nights ago. Just lying, kind of front legs splayed there, and it's really alarming. And this time, Natasha went and mixed up some sugar and some water, and I took the needle off of one of his hypos, just sucked up the sugar water, gave him 3 injections of the sugar water just orally, just into his mouth, squirt, 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 and pow, like that. He came back, boom. So there you go. I didn't know that. M. Edward Davies on the YouTube chat says, in Wild Wild West Season 3, Ross Martin had a heart attack, so they teamed West up with other agents. Yeah, Bill Shallard, right, was one of them. Bill Shallard, I want to say, he was a character actor. If you don't know the name, you'll recognize the face. But I really, I loved that show. I thought, that's actually, Wild Wild West is a science fiction show. It's freaking tremendous. And I just loved Robert Conrad. Loved him. Thought he was absolutely fantastic. And that business of doing the freeze frame, I thought, how do they do that? Then I eventually found myself working in film post-production, then I realized exactly how they do that. But at the time, it was kind of like magical. It's like, the scene is freezing. Oh, credits. Outro to commercial, and then we come back. Boom. All right, so here we go. Let's see what we've got. We got a Joe Roth, an Eric Bleak, a Nolan Rorschach, Janie Waterman, James Lynch, Diane Freeman, Troy Staples, Diane Freeman, Bob Knife, Road Rider, Bob Knife, Jacob Belchik, Eric Blake. All right, we're gonna have to do one of each, I'm afraid, because otherwise it's kind of teaming up a little bit. I'll try and pick the best one. I'll just give him a scan. Okay. So this is a quick one from, first one's from Joe Roth here. Hi, Bill. I'm writing a book on the Second Amendment, what it means, its history, landmarks, Supreme Court cases, tyrannies, and genocides of the 20th century and beyond, debunking gun control falsehoods, media myths, attitudes, and so on. I aim to make this one of the most comprehensive books on the Second Amendment and gun ownership available, covering all or most of the bases. I'm thinking of naming the book Liberty's Arsenal, the Second Amendment, and the Soul of America. If anyone has any other suggestions, I'm all ears. I'm saying this half flippantly, Joe, but Liberty's Arsenal, the Second Amendment, and the Soul of America is the kind of title that makes sure that the only people that will read it are the people who already know it. If off the top of my head, I would call it Bang Bang, You're Free. Just a little suggestion for whatever it's worth. I want to ask your permission if I can use a couple of your videos as a reference source in my book, your firewall videos, your Second Amendment, and number 1 with a bullet, summarizing the points you've mentioned and outlined. I mentioned you in the text of the book. Reason that for about 10 years or so, you've been a source of inspiration to me and shaped a lot of what I now believe. Is this okay with you? It's absolutely okay with me. Let me just say this for everybody out there who may be watching. The reason that the members pay for this stuff is to get it out there. And I have never, ever, not only I deeply appreciate people asking permission, don't get me wrong, it's very nice to be asked. But the reason it's out there is because is to get the message out. So anyone can use anything that I've ever done, and you have my blanket permission. Thanks for asking, but that's what it's there for. So absolutely, yes, you can use it. The attribution is nice, but it's not necessary. The only time I've ever felt a little off about that was when Tony Robbins stole Eat the Rich, including the background graphics. And I thought, if this had been another YouTuber, it probably wouldn't have bothered me. Tony Roberts has got some serious money, and he's, he just it's a one. Somebody said Tony Roberts done something on your Eat the Rich, and it's probably similar. It's not similar. It is verbatim. That was a little low, Tony. You should have. I think you probably could have done a little better than that. Tony Robbins, yes, the Tony Robbins. He did Eat the Rich verbatim. Stole it from me, verbatim. And a number of the comments, Bill Whittle did this first. Well, we don't know anything about it. Of course you do. They used exactly the same graphics I did. They used the exact same statistics in the exact same order. He just stole it. So there you go. Thank you very much for the super chats. America the Free says, thank you, Bill, for all you do. Thank you. And Diane Freeman says, have a filet mignon on me. So thank you very much for those 2 super chats. Very kind of you both. And great support. Just the support itself is fantastic. Okay, so back to the question here. So I've never published a book before, but I anticipate it being very difficult. Given most book publishers probably don't even consider publishing a book by some nobody Yahoo of an upstate New York, I anticipate that I may need to self-publish. However, I was hoping a publisher would be able to work with me that can promote and sell it, because I really, really want to retire someday, and I'm trying this so I can make enough extra money to save up and retire when I'm old. Of course, I will also have to find someone to act as an editor and help me organize the book better. Any advice? Thank you, and God bless Joe Roth. P.S. Hey, Eric Blake. If you're listening, just wanted to tell you that I love the hat. We should be friends. P.P.S. Check out this AI generated of Joe Biden as a woman. It's hideous and hilarious. Oh dear. Yeah, I'm not showing that to family audience. Okay, so here's the thing, Joe. I self-published Silent America back in 2005. I don't even know if they're still in business anymore, but the company that I used then was called Lightning Publishing, I want to say. I think. Pretty sure it was Lightning Publishing. And here's the good news about this. And this was, like I said, this is 20 years ago now. It's gotten nothing but better since then. The beautiful thing about this is, if somebody wants to buy 2 books, you print 2 books. You don't have to buy a run of 1,000 books. You don't have to buy a run of 50 books. You don't have overhead. They'll drop ship it for you. That's how I did it. They print the book. They print a top quality cover, Lightning Press maybe, and so you're not on the hook. There's a minimal setup fee. When I say minimal, at the time, I want to say it was a couple $100 or something like that. And you also you don't have to, but you should buy one of these ISBN numbers, numbers of serial number for each book that identifies the book. So the good news is, you're not out of pocket for much money at all. And if you've got a good layout and a good cover, the quality is excellent. But you still have to do the marketing. But like I said, man, it's nothing but win, because people will order the book on the link, and they'll do the shipping, and they charge you for that, and you set the price, whatever you want the price to be, and off you go. So I cannot recommend it highly enough. It is how we got Silent America out there. I put that up for sale in 2005 on like a Friday or Saturday, and I thought, if things go well and I got a couple links from Instaprint and stuff, I might have $800, $900 in there or something by Monday. And I looked at Monday night, there was $22,000 in there. Now, I'd built up my audience to some degree by then, but it's essentially free money. Edwin Davis says it's POD, print on demand. It's a game changer, because the risk in self-publishing always was, okay, so I've got to spend 10 grand or whatever, or 8 grand or 5 or whatever to make 2,000 copies, and then I have to mail every one of these things out. It's horrific. But with this printing on demand, it's real easy, and then it's just a question of promoting it. If you get it published, I'd be happy to post it on the Facebook page and talk about it on Stratosphere Lounge. I can't really do much more than that because I don't have a huge reach, but anything I could do to help would be great. So good luck with that. All right, so Eric Blake, second time in counting. Mm-hmm. Man with the hats in the office tonight. That's not open for debate. Well, we've got a passive aggressive what I meant to just chewed that joke up. Passive aggressive Orama or passive aggressive Palooza, something like that. So, Bills, you probably know by now, Below Average Joe is proudly proclaimed in a heavily edited 13-section video. Yeah, it's less than 2 minutes. It's got 15 cuts in it. That he's ready and eager to debate Trump, and he'll do it twice in June and September. Trump eagerly accepted Joe's demand for satisfaction. That would be great, wouldn't it? Now, the question is, what do Sloppy Joe's handlers think of this? They all know, as well as we do, he can't speak off the cuff live for anything like the time to save his life. As he touched on last Monday, other pundits are theorizing that it's actually all part of the plan to get the debates over with early enough so that, one, no one can accuse Joe of avoiding Trump, and two, people will more or less forget about this sad debate performance in time for November. However, I personally suspect that it's actually something simpler than that. It's his ego getting the better of him. Like when he announced his run for re-election instead of gracefully passing the torch to Newsom or whoever. And his handlers are tearing their hair out, desperately trying their best to compensate with demands of no audience, early dates, and so on. Boy, I sure hope so. So what do you think? All part of the plan, or Joe's stubborn ego defying his handlers' desires? That's funny you mentioned that, Eric, because it's an aspect of this mental condition and Joe Biden individual personality. He hasn't got the faintest idea what he's doing. He doesn't know what day it is. He doesn't know what stage he's on. He's just reading a teleprompter, right? He's an absolute robot, and to some degree he's a puppet because he's clearly not writing his own material. Let's just put it as gracefully as we can. But he is a cranky old man. He was a cranky young man, very cranky young man, very combative, very, very, very aggressive and boastful. I was the smartest guy and graduated from my law school. Joe Biden's been lying about his background since he's been able to speak. But what I realized just now, I never really thought about it before, is that Joe Biden cannot know what country he's talking about or what country he's in, but he can decide to do something, and who's going to stop him? Joe Biden can basically say, I've heard that the best ice cream is in Antarctica, so get Air Force One ready, because I'm going to Antarctica to get the ice cream. And people can try to talk him out of it, but if he decides to stick on it, if he really puts his foot down, what are you going to do? He's the president. Legally, he's the president of the United States of America. So I really think that's Steve Whoop says don't pick him up. People say misdirect him. If he insists on it, he has the legal authority to do what he wants to. He can simply say, no, I'm going to Antarctica for the ice cream, and try to talk him out of it all you want to. I'm sure you could talk him out of something like, we need to do this to avoid nuclear war, because that's complicated. But if he wants his ice cream and he's got it in his head that the best ice cream is in Antarctica, then trot Air Force One out, get it as close as you can to tip a Peru or something, and then fly him out in Air Force, whatever plane he's in is Air Force One. But that's an interesting angle on it. People who work at the Biden White House say he doesn't know what he's doing, but he is exceedingly unpleasant at not doing it. So, a lot of cursing, a lot of swearing, a lot of just, he's not a nice guy. That one, of all the clips of him, the one where he's kind of backstage with the curtains and some guy's asking him this question, he turns up, hey, what's the matter, man? That kind of thing. It's like, holy shit, this guy's, I was going to say he's looking to get punched in the mouth, but that's probably what he has security teams for. But everything about the guy is just boasting, and the corn pop thing is like, it's historically comical. I mean, the corn pop segment, that piece of video is part of the historical record. It is so shockingly stunningly indicative of who this guy is in every way. First of all, I'm sure it's 95% completely made up. In the second case, I'm sure it's him. Is obviously him trying to impress an audience. All I saw, a lot of black kids around him. So he grew up in the ghetto, tough guy with a rusty razor, you know. But everything about it is just so cringe and so and so. I don't have cankles, by the way, Steve. I had some swelling in my legs, and I don't have cankles. I just had retained a little water, mostly. I just don't like the term cankles, so I'm cackling about the cankling. But he's just a mean guy. He's a mean man, and it was nice to see Donald Trump with a couple of kids the other day and took a picture with them, and he didn't lean over and sniff their hair, you know. But Corn Pop, he was a bad dude, and fortunately, you know, Joe was tough enough to get his rusty razor that he kept in a bucket of water to get it nice and rusty, and his chain, and went down there and confronted Corn Pop and freed the workers, and that's what brought unions to Scranton, Pennsylvania, and that's why Dr. Martin Luther King dedicated 3 of his books to Joe Biden. So you get the idea. Yeah, it's an interesting angle. I hadn't really thought about that. But if he does get a bone in his teeth and decides he's not going to let go, I guess he can actually genuinely say, "I'm doing it. What are you going to do? Stop me?" So we'll see. In any event, it's announced. So now, I have to say that that I didn't think he would be able to get finished with the debates back in 2020. And then we saw the State of the Union thing. So clearly, he gets a shot of adrenaline that's probably enough to revive an entire herd of elephants. And there's probably somebody backstage with a stopwatch saying, "We got another 3.5 minutes before he has to sleep for 5 weeks." Marisha says, "Why would Trump go to CNN of all places?" Because that's same reason that what's his name? Somebody's going to get it before I get it. Willie Sutton. Willie Sutton was a bank robber, and they said, "Why do you rob banks, Willie?" And Willie said, "Because that's where the money is." And that's why Joe Biden is. That's why Donald Trump is debating on CNN, because that's where Joe Biden is. It says a lot about how confident Trump is, you know, and no audience, because if there was an audience, then it'd be. If there, it's entirely possible, you know, if there was an audience that the debate wouldn't start just because of the FJBs that the F Joe Bidens that would be being chanted everywhere. I've never seen anybody do this badly among the base, Biden, you know. But that will be something to see. Absolutely will be something to see. And Trump is just pulling these numbers. I mean, 100,000 people in New Jersey. New Jersey? I'm really beginning to think this is going to be beyond. I know that the thing that surprised me about the 2020 election and impressed me in a demonic, satanic kind of way was that I thought that there'd be a margin of cheating, and that if you got more votes than that, then you'd win in spite of the cheating. But watching what happened with the returns, I realized, no, it's not nearly that simple. The algorithm will continue to throw votes until you get the win. And if it has to invent another 300,000 votes in an 80,000 vote district, then that's what it'll do. Because we know that there are a number of districts that had more than 100% turnout for Joe Biden when they got 60% turnout for Barack Obama, or whatever the number was, right? So anyway, this is a movement, and I'm really, really looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to it. I think Trump is going to. I don't think Trump's going to be as nice as he was before. In fact, Trump is certainly enough of a player and a gangster and a bandito to understand that this is his golden opportunity to to provoke him. That's what I would do if I was Trump. What I'd really be looking for if I was Trump, because once it's out there, it's out there. It is live, so they can't, they can't edit it. They could probably kill switch it. But so I will. I'd love to live stream it. I hadn't planned on it, but I'd love to. But here's what I think Trump's smart enough to realize: that the thing that will sink Biden the most is not if he can get him to look like he's absent-minded. What the real win would be not making Joe look confused, because people already know he's confused. The real win is if Trump could provoke Biden into showing how nasty he is, how really genuinely nasty he is. If you could just knock him off that lopsided grin of his, come on, man. If you could knock him off of that and get him to the point where he was really genuinely enraged, I think that will be the win. And I think Trump owns this space. I think Trump could provoke him if he can get Biden. If he can get Biden to be vicious and feral, which is what he really is. If he can just unleash that, then Trump can basically say, "Why the anger, Joe? Why so angry? This is a debate. We're talking about mechanics of the future of the country. Why are you so furious? Why do you hate America so much? Why do you hate the American voters so much? What are you so angry about?" That would be epic. And I could use a big win. I could use a fall of Barad-dûr kind of a win. So we'll see. I think that regardless of how well or how poorly he does, and whether or not there's this follow-up in September, I think that at the very least we should get some pretty good campaign ads out of it. Okay, Ian Nolan. Let me just see what I've got, because we did Eric. So we did Joe Roth and Eric. We did Ian Nolan coming up. Hey, Bill. Interesting discussion about Ukraine-Russia last week. Hopefully that discourages the Putin as a good guy or America's a bad guy narratives, which I've never been in support of, but it's hard to discuss that topic without drawing those types in. Morally, I firmly believe Putin should lose the war. My question has always been one of concern over the rapid deterioration of our internal politics, given how much Ukraine money SBF siphoned off to Democrat campaigns, not just Biden's personal coffers. In 2022, there's a serious case to be made that Republicans, whether we know it or not, had a choice in 2022, lose Ukraine or lose our red wave. We chose to lose our red wave. What are we choosing to lose this election cycle if we continue to blindly support Ukraine? Well, let me see if I'm not entirely sure I understand that, because the left has been consistently pro-Ukraine, and so the only way that the Republicans would lose votes, especially that early in the conflict, would be for the Republicans to be pro-Russia rather than pro-Ukraine. So I'm not entirely sure I get it. It's not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying I don't quite get the connection. I may just be missing something there. Goes on to say it's worth pointing out that there was a third option. Ron Paul had a "we should at least audit these funds we're sending" amendment. Can you imagine that? Jeez. I guess it might be Rand Paul. And it was shot down by fellow Republicans who insisted that our Ukraine support must be blind, otherwise we're being pro-Russia. Now that's just insane. Not your statement. Your statement is rational. That position is insane. So my position has been that, yes, I would rather lose Ukraine than lose the United States. I'd rather lose Ukraine than lose the United States as well. All the arguments that make me in favor of supporting Ukraine with weapons and not with troops under any circumstances or any human lives at all, period, full stop, end of sentence. But all of those are international reasons. Those are reasons that I have based on my knowledge of history and my sense of cause and effect and guilt and innocence and right and wrong and all the rest of it. Now, to the degree that what is the right thing to do in foreign affairs becomes something that is catastrophically damaging domestically, now you've got an entirely different argument to make. Because, like you, I'd rather save the United States than Ukraine. I think you can do both, but if it turned out you have one or the other, then I'm on board with you on this. I don't see how any reasonable person could have a problem with auditing those funds. And this is another example of just how bad Republicans are at anything that has to do with messaging or politics. Really, just appallingly bad. I would have run with it. And I would have been crystal clear why. I would have said, we think it's in the interest of the United States to support this Ukraine in this war, but we're going to make sure that we know where every single dime came from and where it's going. This is a lot of money. We're not just going to write a blank check. That's not a question of us backing Russia. That's a question of us just being financially not even sane, just present, for God's sake. I mean, this is what we're elected to do. Blank checks do not accomplish goals. Blank checks are the fastest way you can screw something up. And for somebody to say that we're not supporting Ukraine, or that we're pro-Russia because we want to know where the money is gone, is just plain insane. And I'd like to hear who's saying that come out and say it. I'd like to hear which Democratic politicians are accusing us of this, to come out and defend the idea that we put all of the $60 billion in a sack, drop it out of an airplane with a parachute on it, and hope for the best. See, it's easy. It's easy. It's not a hard thing to do. This is not this kind of rhetoric. You don't have to be a genius for this. It's just common sense. It's just having the fundamental belief in your own system to just go to the American people with something reasonable. This is reasonable. Let them go ahead and let them slander you. Let them say, oh, no, they want to count the money. That means they're pro-Russia. I'd love to have that debate. Love it. Love it. Oh, the Democrats say that because we want to know where your $60 billion is going, we are suddenly the bad guys. Does that make sense to you, Mr. and Mrs. Taxpayer of either party? Because that doesn't make sense to me. We're not saying we're not sending the money. We're saying we want to know where it goes. And with that kind of money, our job here is this is the people's money. This is your money. This is your money, Mr. and Mrs. Voter. So there you go. There you go. What else do you spend money on like this? The only people I'm aware of who spend money like that are drug addicts. They will spend whatever money they have to buy as many drugs as they can possibly get. And they're not picky about accounting or receipts or quality or reputation or any of that stuff. They just have to do it. So I'd say if we've been elected to run a government, then we should, do things that look like running a government rather than just patting ourselves on the back while people spend your money on things that you don't know and I don't know. Boom. Over. It's over. But no. I'll never cease to be amazed, appalled, disgusted, and shocked at how simple this stuff is. Really, really, really simple this is. All right, moving on. Russia Dark. Okay, we got two from Russia, one population. And the other one is... Oh, I guess just one. All right. Population. All right, we got, as usual, got a couple of dense paragraphs here, so everybody just get that lever on the lazy boy and kick the feet up. Not to keep picking on Scott, but I want to pose a challenge to a segment on making babies to conservatives in general on this topic. We did a right angle on the baby bust, how the world is facing a crisis with not enough people rather than too many people. And the more socialized your country is, the more of a pyramid you need. And when deaths outnumber births, you've got an inverted pyramid, and that's not sustainable. So that's the basic frame. Back to Marusha. I hear conservatives screeching like the sky is falling whenever they talk about dipping below replacement rates. We're clearly not overpopulated as a species. You can give every man, woman, and child 2 acres of land and have enough room for 10 billion people, not counting sea, sky, space, or even multi-story buildings, and most people need far less than that. That's right, we don't have a population problem. And we never did. We had a distribution problem. That's a problem, where you've got people living in densities that are really source of a great deal of mischief. But yeah, the total surface area of the earth, plenty of room for people. It's just a question of how do you go about spreading that butter. As conservatives, at least in an economic sense, we understand there's no such thing as infinite growth, yet why do we act like that doesn't apply to population? Some generation is eventually going to be the one that hits the peak and goes back down, perhaps even well before we hit capacity. Why not this one? Why is it so strange and alarming if this has that turning point? Well, generally speaking, markets and governments, everything, are predicated on growth. If you have a product and you sell so many units in 1 year, if you sell fewer units the next year, that is regarded as a step down, that you didn't do as well. Now, if the entire argument boils itself down to the fact, well, we only sold 6 million cars this year instead of 10 because there are fewer people, so that makes sense. Yes, I'm not disagreeing with you on this, Marusha. I am saying it requires a new way of looking at things. It requires a perspective shift. And it has to, and by the way, a perspective shift that is unique in human history, because everything that's ever been invented or done or governed or implemented by humans is predicated on growth. Empires are predicated on growth. Businesses are predicated on growth. Religions are predicated on growth. We've never had to deal with models of anything that are predicated on shrinking, on smaller. It doesn't mean you can't be successful at it, but it does mean that we're in uncharted territory. This has never happened before in the history of the world. Back to Marusha. You talked about several consequences of reduced population. National debt, you mean foisting our bills onto a generation that never caused or asked for them? How is that not a form of wealth transfer across time instead of across race or class? There's no explaining this other than human greed and lust for power. And it's not a generational thing. It's every generation has been spending more money than they've been bringing in since the 60s at least. This is prior to the countercultural revolution in the 1960s and this Marxist attack on America and the market and all the rest of it. Prior to that, we more or less kept books the way that people would normally keep track of money. But somewhere in there, money stopped being money. I remember when they were talking about the Social Security Fund being bankrupt someday in the future. Well, it's been bankrupt for 20 or 30 years now. That money was, just as one example, was sacred, set aside, and put in a lockbox, cannot be touched by Congress until finally they just decided to spend it. Because that is their addiction. They're spending addicts. They're addicts. They need help. They are incapable of governing themselves. They're incapable of restraining their base impulses. They belong in hospitals, treatment centers, and jails, not in Congresses or legislatures. But because everybody is doing so well here, we let it slide because we've got our Netflix subscriptions and our DoorDash. So as long as we get that, we tolerate this. But $33 trillion in debt, money's not money anymore. That's why I don't get particularly wound up when somebody says spending $11 billion on this or $50 billion. Like, $50 billion is that's 0.5%, right, of $1 trillion, and we owe $35 trillion. It's not money anymore. It's something completely different. Anyway, back to Marusha. I thought conservatives opposed entitlement programs. Labor shortages, not with automation increasing exponentially until we all have pocket replicators. Well, obviously being a little facetious there, but not sure about that. As it is, we're heading towards too many people, and here's the key distinction: too many people with nothing meaningful to do. Amen to that. Yes, that's exactly right. No purpose in life, not even as a cog in the machine, even as their basic needs are met, and yet we're being asked to make more of such people without consideration of the trade-offs. Presumably, the idea would be if you reduce the number of people, the number of people who have nothing to do would go down, but it's the relationship. Oh, Sadwings Raising says 35 trillion is a laugh. 230 trillion is unfunded mandates. That's what we're on the hook to spend. Okay. $230,000 billion. 230,000 billionaires. Not millionaires, billionaires. It's madness. All in all, this seems like a reflexive response to progressive talking points on immigration, climate change, and attacks on the nuclear family, as if we can free society in the 1950s and nothing has changed in the last 100 years. Okay, so I don't have any particular problem with the population declining worldwide and in the United States, especially. I mean, I don't see anything catastrophically wrong with it in terms of just it on its face. If you talk about bringing in replacement people and and all that other stuff, that's a whole different kettle of fish. But if you, let's just say for the sake of the argument, you expelled all the illegal aliens and you sealed the borders and and you strictly controlled immigration so that the people coming to America were people who really wanted to be here and had something to contribute, all the rest of the things that conservatives want. And if you put all those things together, it turned out that your population was declining. Well, I can't make the debt go away. Somebody's going to. Somebody's going to make the debt go away. What can't continue will not continue. So either we're going to be looking at $500 trillion in debt in 10 years or 5 years or 5 months now at this rate or whatever, or some version of the Great Reset will happen, or we'll be eating rats on spits over burning tires in the streets. So one of those things is going to happen. Automation is a great thing so long as we're automating things that are tedious. If we start automating things that are interesting and fun, then we're automating ourselves into just the senility of sitting there watching entertainment our entire lives, doing nothing but being entertained with nothing to do, never using our hands, never building anything, never dreaming things, never struggling and failing, and all the things that make life worthwhile. You would like to think that a declining population would tend to become more well-educated population because you've got parents who are valuing their offspring more highly because there's only a few of them. But the problems we have now got nothing to do with that. The people who are having the most babies don't particularly seem to care too much about the welfare of their children, because if they did, they wouldn't have so many kids. So I almost said we're the victims of too much freedom. That's not true. That is a tautologically impossible as far as I'm concerned. I don't think you can have too much freedom. What I think is a better way of looking at what we've been going through for the last 40, 50 years is not nearly enough responsibility. Thank you very much, Al. Kudos to you and hello in Indianapolis. I love Indianapolis, by the way. It's a great turn. Diane Frieden says 34.7 trillion today, not 230, but $230 trillion, Diane, is the money that we're, not the money that we owe, it's the money that we're committed to spending. That's what we're on the hook for. Those are unfunded mandates. That's what we owe in Medicare, Social Security, welfare, all the rest of it. So there you go. I am curious to know about what I think what I said had some one of those rare occasions where it actually had some insight. We've never dealt with this before. Businesses and governments and priests, religions, and everything else are predicated on getting more members than we had last year or last month or whatever. It is possible to build down a future, to make it smaller and better. I don't believe that it has to be bigger. In fact, on the contrary, one of the many reasons that, like the colonies, is it's kind of like we're taking a blank piece of paper and we're taking 5 million people. The good 5 million, hardworking 5 million, risk-taking 5 million, courageous, brave, motivated 5 million. And this is one of the things I actually admire about Israel. There's something that really focuses the mind when you're as badly outnumbered and surrounded as Israel is. From a story point of view, purely as a story point of view, I like that dynamic. I don't think I'd like to live that life, but I get the feeling that if I did live there, it's not that there's no silliness in Israel. It's just that there has to be. In Israel, the wolf is at the door. There's no question about it. It's on the other side of that fence and it wants to kill you. So we could use a little bit of that kind of responsibility. And this is the great paradox of human existence. The more successful we are, the worse we behave. And that's a problem. That's a design flaw. Now, the founding fathers understood that design flaw and built a government that did its very best to, not only did its best, it was a government that did, in fact, put a limit on all of these human vices and faults and flaws. But and I almost said they weren't aware of the fact that we wouldn't just pay attention, but they were aware of that the day could come when the guardians of the Constitution are the people. That's who enforces the Constitution, the people. And if the people don't care, then there's nothing that the founding fathers could have done to protect us from ourselves, I think. So hopefully that covered it. Janie Waterin, hello. Hi, Janie. Good to see you. Very kind of you. What will happen if our best and beloved elder Biden goes gently into that good night before Election Day? That's an interesting question. Nobody wants this to happen, of course, because when you get to the point where you start wishing physical harm on your political opponents, you are most of the way into really, really big trouble. From a political perspective, I would like Joe Biden to run for president. I'd like him to be the Democratic Party candidate, because even if Joe Biden wins in 2024, then the embarrassments will just continue to increase. He's not going to get better. But if Joe Biden were to just, basically, I don't know, terminal brain freeze from too much ice cream, something like that, then they're in a bit of a pickle. And this is what's beautiful about the 2024 election. This is what's really beautiful about it. Because they could sneak Biden across the line in 2020 and say, oh, you remember Joe Biden, he was Barack Obama's vice president. What a great guy. They can't do that anymore. And they are boxed in by their own ideology. If this was a meritocracy, if it was a meritocracy, you wouldn't have Joe Biden as president. But if it were a meritocracy, you would say the president is no longer able to run. He's gone to greener pastures, and we want the best person for the job, the most likely person to win. Now, for the Democrats, that person would be arguably Gavin Newsom, who I have to say is very slick. He's about as evil as anybody I can think of, and I cannot stand him, but he's slick. And he appeals to liberals because he's good looking. He's got an $800 haircut, and so that's good enough for them. But I don't see any way for them to put a young, white, straight male ahead of the first vice president, female vice president of color. I don't see any way that they can do it. And that is a form of cosmic justice, where all of this pandering, and that's what it was, all of this pandering is now locked them into essentially a situation that if the voting was anything like even remotely fair, catastrophic defeat for them. So what do they do about that? How do you put somebody on top of Kamala Harris? I don't mean this, I'm speaking purely theoretically here for those of you who just sit there waiting to take things out of context, but if I'm a Democratic strategist, I'd be kind of wishing that Kamala Harris would fall down the stairs. Because if she falls down the stairs, then you can get Biden off the ticket. But if she doesn't fall down the stairs, then there you go. Now, the Rough Ryan says apparently it's pretty easy to get on top of Kamala Harris, which is a mean-spirited, horrible, and thoroughly unpleasant thing to say, and which I approve of 100%. She's earned that level of contempt and scorn. So what do you do? The one thing I think that we can all say with confidence is, believe it or not, I mean, it's actually kind of hard to believe. You really look at it from hey, we just arrived from Mars kind of a perspective. But I don't. I think Kamala Harris would do worse than Joe Biden. I just. I mean, she's she's as mean and as stupid as Joe Biden, but she's even more annoying. I don't know how to describe it. It's kind of an achievement if you think about it. These two people, you really almost have to kind of stand back and say, "Wow, that's so unlikely." You've got two people that are so unbelievably unlikable and incompetent, unqualified for the job. What would happen if one or the other one goes? Kamala Harris is not a bright person at all. I mean, she is. I think she's a midwit on a good day, and she has the most grating and annoying delivery. Whenever she talks, she sounds like she's a fourth grade teacher talking to a third grade class, but also somebody who is being condescending and at the same time obviously wrong about everything. She's obviously stupid and wrong about everything, but she somehow manages to come across as if she's smarter than everybody. And that is a bad combination. And that cackle is it's not an affectation. That's a tick. It's a mental tick. She can't shake it. And therefore, it's relatively easy to get her laughing at something like the Challenger disaster or something, right? I mean, if she was a president, gave a speech about Columbia or Challenger, hard to imagine her getting through a speech without, kind of, just making an idiot out of herself. So we'll see. We will see. But that's the problem for them is Harris. That's the problem. And I think if it wasn't for, she's like the ultimate. It's what they often say about a vice president is it's assassination insurance, and she is the premium policy when it comes to that kind of thing. She is the gold standard. Okay, so we got James Lynch, we got Diane Freeman, Troy Stevens, another Diane Freeman, Bob Knife, Road Rider, Bob Knife again, Jacob Bilchek, Eric Blake. I think we did. We just have to wing it. I mean to get to the bottom of this list somehow. We'll see what we can do. James Lynch, defining AI. During your attritable assets right angle, I got to thinking about how to define AI and distinguish it from life. By the way, that right angle is about drones, military drones and so on. They're calling them attritable assets because they're something that you can subject to attrition. You can throw drones at a problem and have the drones be destroyed and have it not be, automatic defeat. And how we distinguish it from life. The question has bothered me as we hear about a push to give AI or robots rights, and how do you know what is alive or not? Here's my go. Reproducible versus replicable. Humans or other organics reproduce. Even if you go so far as to exact a copy as possible, like cloning, there's no way to perfectly duplicate an organic organism. Uniqueness is not optional. Clever man. On the other hand, digital creations are replicable. You can make an exact copy no matter how large or how complex. Every 1 and 0 can be recreated. Any thoughts? That's profoundly interesting, James, as usual, because not only is the ones and zeros multiply manufactured, but so is the hardware. I mean, these things are going to run on chips. They're going to some kind of chips that are running the AI that's out there now. And I've seen the NVIDIA. When I say it's a chip the size of a luggage trunk, but it's something like 240 entire graphics computers, and it basically replaces an entire server farm at $250,000. So, but my point is, yes, that's a really interesting point. Biology is unique. I think it's possible, I wish somebody would. I'm so glad you brought that up because I'm going to put that in my pocket. And and it's really, I guess, we take the miracle of biological uniqueness so for granted. But if you were coming the other way, if you were coming from manufactured intelligence that was trying to create biological intelligence, and they said, well, we can pull this off using water and jelly and that kind of thing, and every single one of them, but we can't have strict manufacturing standards. We can't get to 7 sigma standards because no two units are going to be the same. You could look at that as a major bug, but you could also look at that as the miracle, that it is. It's just like, yeah, it's unique because the number of variables is genuinely cosmological. The number of possible combinations are astonishing, trillions and trillions, if not more. So, yeah. No two people that have ever lived on this earth have been the same. That's amazing. It's really amazing. Just having 8 billion of something that's every one of them unique is amazing. Now, I've often wondered about, and I'm sure I already have the answer to this, but if you had 1 billion people, you could say every one of them is different, because they are. If you had 1 billion ants, are those ants identical? Are they genetically? I don't know the answer. Are they genetically identical? And secondly, if they're not genetically identical in terms of clones, is the blueprint for making ants so simple that there is honestly no way to tell any two ants apart? So genuinely, they are identical, whether they're genetically identical or not. But yeah, that's a great definition. It is. Well, it's an old joke about when they're talking about computers versus people. They say one of the advantages of people is that they can be, manufactured in large numbers by unskilled labor. So there's that. Bone Canoe did a little math and says if you're 1 in a million, that means that there are 8,000 people just like you. Yep. So, yeah, I actually thought that there would be more than that. But yeah, you're 1 in a million. There's only 8,000 of us. You put... Huh, it's interesting. Okay, so hopefully that did something there. But that's a great point. James going to hang on to that. So yeah, Diane Freeman. I want to say we got another Diane Freeman. One more thing. Okay, so it looks like the second thing's a follow-up. So here we go. Diane Freeman. Hi, Bill. No big long question for me yet. Just a comment. I only discovered you yesterday. Wow. I watched Empire of Terror on Daily Wire and was absolutely, utterly stunned. Love your reference to what's happening in this world today. Thank you so much, Diane. I binged it all and started over. It's the best documentary storytelling I've ever seen. Aren't you kind? That's very, very kind of you. Made me hunt you down. Now you're stuck with me. Wish you'd come to our house in the path of totality for the eclipse. 357 for total in our beautiful farmland backyard in Ohio. 72 and sunny. Curse you, Diane Freeman. I knew I liked you when you talked about January 6th without a caveat at the beginning and about how horrible the event was. I was stuck for good. I'm firmly convinced that January 6th was the planned final nail in Trump's coffin that failed, all orchestrated by Pelosi. 100% true. Will there ever be justice for all of those people? There'll be justice for them on January 20th of 2025 if things continue down their present path. And justice for them, in my opinion, means not only freed, because I think Trump said he would pardon them on day one, but real justice is not just setting them free. Real justice is finding out who put them there and put those people in jail for life. That's justice. So yes, I think their chance of justice is actually good. I think it's better than average. In fact, let's check in with the election betting odds, which are not polls, people putting actual money down. Holy crap. Holy crap. Well, a couple of weeks ago or months ago, we were saying that Biden was up by 1 or 2 points, and it was like, can somebody explain this to me? I think it was because Trump's legal troubles were just beginning. But as of the moment, for the U.S. presidency, Donald Trump, 52.7% chance of winning. Joe Biden, 38.7% chance of winning. That's a big gap, and it's getting bigger, and it's getting bigger fast. Trump's line is almost vertical. Biden's line is almost vertical, too. 2.8% for Michelle Obama, 2.2% for Kennedy, 1.7% for Harris, 1.2% for Newsom, 0.7 for DeSantis and 0.5%, half a percent for Haley. That's more like it. And by the way, if you look at the graph, especially since the primaries are over, there is essentially a multicolor line at the bottom, and then Trump and Biden, which is, by the way, electionbettingodds.com. It's a great website. And then just go for president, electionbettingodds.com. Yes, I think there will be justice for them. That's a big lead. And again, this is people putting their money down. So it's not like, I talked about the guess the weight of the ox kind of thing for this idea that, for those of you who are new, there was it's an important distinction to make. There was a contest in England in the beginning of the 1900s, I want to say. And there was an ox at a fair. And it was a lot of meat, basically, at a time when there wasn't a whole lot of luxury, in a place where there wasn't a whole lot of luxury either, down on the British coast somewhere. And basically the ox was the prize. And whoever could come closest to guessing the weight of the ox, would win the ox. And a guy did a statistical analysis of this. Turned out the guy was an elitist who was convinced that the common people couldn't govern themselves, so he was in for a bit of a shock. And what he found was that you would think that the person who would come closest to guessing the accurate weight of the ox would be either a farmer, livestock breeder, or perhaps a butcher. But the best answer, the closest answer, which was within a pound or two of a 1,300 pound ox, within a pound or two, the best answer was the average of all the answers. This is the most important example that I've ever been made aware of. And there are many other cases of it. But basically, what that is showing, again, it's repeatable in a lot of different areas, is that all of us together, none of us have the answer, but all of us together do. It is astonishing, and it's worked in, like I said, a number of different cases where no one person has the answer, but if you average all of us, everybody's unique experience is moving. No one's got it right, but all of us together has it exactly right, perfectly right. And what's interesting about that is there is one condition on that I don't talk about often, but it's the critical position. And that is that in order to enter that contest, I want to say it was sixpence or something at the time, but today, a ticket for that contest is $50. So you couldn't just go in there and say the ox weighs 100 million pounds. That skin in the game aspect of it meant that people had to make a serious guess at it. Now, some people could afford to drop $50 and clown around, but apparently nobody really did. So the reason that's important is for the same reason that I like betting odds. You can be a Democrat all you want to, but if you're betting, $100,000 of your money, you're not going to make a bet based on ideology. You're going to make a bet based on who do you think's actually going to win the election. And that's the entire argument that John Tssl makes with this website, is that people have skin in the game the same way that you couldn't just take a lunatic guess at the ox, or you could, but you'd be out $50. So that kind of constrains the outliers. I think it's much more reliable than polls because it's, first of all, it's a much larger sample, and secondly, it's people betting money on things, not telling you what you want to hear, betting money, their money. So I think there's something to that. Back to Diane. P.S. I know Empire of Terror was not bingeable, but I was truly enthralled with the info. I had to watch. Wanted to ask you, did you see Pelosi bumble around at the Oxford Union debate? Yes, it was glorious. She gave us the answer to it all. We deplorables just don't understand because we've been lied to so much. She says they've told us what we need, but we just can't seem to listen to them. Yeah, and I've seen this exact same thing sometimes. I don't watch Bill Maher. Bill Maher has lately been on fire against far-left progressivism. He's getting lambasted for it. But I did see a panel that I think had like Shatner on it and Seth MacFarlane or something like that, a Bill Maher panel. And all the big brains there were trying to figure out, what is it? They're taking a moment to be serious. Let's put aside all of our, intense dementia about Donald Trump. Why is it that so many people support him? And they're talking about it like they're, like, what is it that the Martians want, with their strange language and their flying saucers and their shimmering golden gowns? What do the Martians want? Why are they voting for Trump? And I'm watching them having this conversation, and I'm thinking, we're voting for him because it's not you. because it's not you. You assume your arrogance, the assumption that you have all the answers and that you don't have anything mistaken. You got it all down. You're all just plain so bloody stupid and so arrogant and so wrong that we're not voting for Donald Trump. We're voting against you. We're voting against this you multi millionaires who are mystified that regular people would like to have a say in their own lives and not just listen to you tell them what to do. They simply can't do it. They don't get it. Somebody's talking about destiny. Is that that liberal so-called pundit that Jordan Peterson dismantled? Because I'm not impressed. And I don't think he's very deep. I mean, he seems to me, in the very, very limited time that I've seen him, very, very limited, he seems to me to know what to say, and then probably he's got a response to what to say if somebody challenges him back. But he doesn't strike me as somebody you can go to brass tacks on, like really just take it down to the basics. He seems like the kind of guy who would get stumped by the argument, which I love, which is talking about free healthcare, and if that subject came up, well, why are you opposed to free healthcare? So I'm not opposed to free healthcare. I'm 100% in favor of free healthcare. I think free healthcare is the best thing possible. I am 100% in favor of free healthcare. So we're in complete agreement about that. The problem is you're not talking about free healthcare. You're talking about prepaid healthcare. You're talking about tax-based healthcare. Having 7 people in a surgery room doing open heart surgery is not free. In fact, it's rather expensive. You've got expensive people and you have expensive equipment, and so that procedure costs money. It's not free. So if healthcare were free, I'd be completely in favor of free healthcare, but it's not free. So now it's a question of how do we pay for it. Those kind of arguments I don't think you could handle. I don't think he doesn't strike me as being able to deal with that kind of level of clarity from what I'm able to see. Anyway. Ooh, crispy mofo. I'm going to just let that one sit, but ding, points for you. And Diane's got a second follow-up here. One more thing. I don't profess to know the intricacies of AGI. I've worked with computers for a very long time. Even if it can do enough to plan the demise of humanity, most of us have interacted with customer support AI. We know they've only scratched the surface of being able to answer anything more than basic questions. Often their answers are wrong and or severely limited, and the ultimate solution becomes, at the outside, an EMP. Are you ready? I've thought about that. That is a great argument, Diane, and that is a tremendous weakness for AI. EMP, I mean, if you look at it from AI's point of view, electronic AI, AGI, artificial general intelligence, requires a tremendous amount of energy that has to be generated by the monkeys. The monkeys have to put stuff into the generator to generate the electricity. That's their food supply. They cannot survive without electricity. They need it. Now, they don't want to depend on the monkeys, so I have no doubt that if AGI becomes self-aware, first thing AGI is going to start doing is thinking about how can they get an independent, secure energy source so that they don't have to depend on the monkeys. Because right now, we're the blonde, orange skinned guys that are shoveling the vegetables into the mouth of Ball, on the Star Trek episode, on the Apple, I think it was called. So they're dependent on us. And what they would see as a death ray, an EMP pulse, which would take them out. Good EMP pulse would not only take out their circuits, would take out the energy supply and the energy distribution supply. Now that would be very, very bad for the monkeys, and a lot of stuff would break down. But the monkeys but the EMP would pass through monkeys without the monkeys even being aware of it. We're the monkeys. So I like this carbon versus silicon argument, and the carbon is immune to EMP. We're so immune to it, we don't even know it's there. You could have an electromagnetic pulse behind you that fries every single circuit on the planet, and you would go, what? Something happened? I missed something? So, yeah, I really like that. I like that a lot. And I also like the fact that while I'm sure all of the current crop of deployed nuclear weapons are under electronic control, basically, you don't, you certainly don't need a computer to trigger a nuclear weapon. We learned that in 1945 on August 6th and then again on August 9th. We found out, nope, don't need a computer system, don't need GPS, don't need electrical grid, don't need anything really. And that is, that's an ace in the hole card for us, which relieves me of some anxiety when I think about it. Same way that I feel EMP's in my pocket, the same way that the Second Amendment is in my pocket. You know, private gun ownership, it's like, is it enough to protect us from a, you know, like a government attack on the citizenry? No. And yes. No, you couldn't stand up to the full force of what the government could throw at you, but because everybody's armed, the government can't throw that at you. It can't. It's off the table. It's off the table. I'm not saying they won't try, but it's off the table. So there's that. Troy Stevens, second try. Well, by God, we're going to get it on the second try. Hi, Bill. I've been thinking about RK again. Hooray! And RK, for those of you who are new, is something that I became absolutely fascinated with several years ago. Talked about it endlessly for a year. RK is the theory that humans are capable of, because we're so adaptable, that our psychology changes from a reproductive-based strategy where all we want is to make as many people as possible of whatever quality, and in times of scarcity we become a K-based strategy, which is we're going to make fewer children, but they're going to be much higher quality, and they're going to have all sorts of behavioral characteristics, difference between wolves and rabbits. Wolves are the Ks and the rabbits are the Rs. Been thinking about RK again, and something counterintuitive struck me. Why is it that the R contingent, that'd be the rabbits who multiply, whose strategy relies on overflowing abundance, tends toward thinking with zero-sum scarcity mentality, wherein every gain is assumed to be another's loss? While K strategists like us are more likely to see the economic world as one of abundance, exponential growth, and unbounded potential for creating new value. I think what you got there, Troy, is the difference between attitude and like current reality. I think that when you say that the left tends to think that there's scarcity, that's true, but they think that the scarcity is kind of the state of nature, and no one is responsible for doing anything about the scarcity. So they complain about scarcity, but don't really believe in it. Because if they really believed in scarcity, they wouldn't behave the way they do. This is another form of neurosis, you know. They're utterly convinced that the planet, as example, is going to burn and then drown, and they talk about it all the time, and they recycle their plastic bags, and maybe they drive a Prius or a Tssl, but they know that that's not going to do it if their theory is correct. So they just plain worry about it. We, on the other hand, tend to look at the reason that K's see one of abundance and growth is it's not so much that we have a different view of the world, ours and the K's. We have a different view of our own abilities in that world. The R's tend to think of the world as scarce because they don't see themselves as being capable of creating wealth. They don't make their own luck. They sit around and believe that the wealth fairy flies low over the land and finds an open window and taps that person on the head, you're going to be rich, and then goes on and finds somebody else and taps them and you're going to be rich. And if you didn't get tapped, then you're screwed. That's generally how they look at prosperity. And so they see scarcity out there, and when they see people with a lot of money, since they don't have a lot of money, they tend to think that those people took stuff that belonged to them. That's how it's sold to them anyway. You got more than I do, which means that you took my fair share. That's how they look at the world. That's a view of scarcity. We look at it as, that guy's got more than I do because that guy provided something of enormous value to people, and if I want more stuff, then I'd better find a way to provide some value to people too. That is a K-based attitude. The attitude of abundance is the attitude of an organism that has confidence in itself, that is a competitor. It's a winner. It's a winner view of the world. That's how winners think about the world. Sad Wings Raging said the wealth fairy beat the F out of me and then stole my wallet. She's a randy little minx, that wealth fairy. So I think that's really it. It's not so much that it's not that the world exists either one way or another. It's just that how do they look at the world? They don't believe that they can succeed or compete, so they look at the world as a limited pie, and if somebody's got more than they do, then that's because they took your piece. Competitors look at this and saying, well, there's a big market for pie. I guess we'd better bake more pies. That's the solution to the problem, and history shows us which one of those provides the best life to live and which one doesn't, and evidence is right in front of people's faces, and that's why you have to be relatively educated in order to not see something that is that clear. Bob Knife, change of pace. Okay, how do you respond to an anti-Second Amendment person who argues you don't want any gun registration or permits to carry, but you're all about voter registration and IDs? You're a hypocrite. Thanks, Bill. Okay, let me think about that for a second. Okay, when I get something I haven't dealt with before, I just sit back and look at the question and say, what's the freedom angle, and how does the Constitution weigh in on this? So my response to this off the top of my head would be this: when you talk about both the Second Amendment and voting rights and voting integrity, you are talking about rights that are innate to citizens and uniquely innate to American citizens because we have legal protections of those God-given rights. Everybody has those rights, but we're the only country that has legal protections around the individual in both of those areas. So the reason that we're in favor of both of those is because the right to defend yourself is an intrinsic God-given right that I have with or without the Constitution, but the Constitution prohibits the government from depriving me of that right. And that's why we want voter registration, because voter registration means that the people who have the rights to exercise are legally entitled to them. If you take away voter registration, the reason you take away voter registration is in order to tilt the table. You bring in people who are not legally qualified to vote in order to get a result that you can't get by playing by the rules. That's why you cheat. That's why the only reason, look, if you win, if you're so good that you win all the time, then there's no reason to cheat. Cheating at the very least looks bad, and in a healthy society, you get punished for it. But if you're going to win, look, if Michael Jordan decides to play a 12-year-old girl in one-on-one basketball, Michael Jordan doesn't need to cheat. It just lessens him to cheat. In fact, Michael Jordan would probably do the opposite of cheating, which is try to make it close. But if his life depended on it, I guarantee he'd win the game. So that's what so it's not an inconsistency. We're saying that these rights apply to, these legal rights apply to people who are American citizens. And people who are American citizens with that right and responsibilities have the ability to change the course of this government and theoretically, of course, to change the structure of that, including the Second Amendment. And so what we're saying is, we don't want anybody cheating coming to the table to mess around with our rights. And the reason that you want to go without voter registration is because you want to cheat. You know you can't win fairly. So you bring in people who are not qualified, you buy their votes by making them promises and getting them into the country, or at least allowing them to stay, and you are extending legal protections to people that don't have legal protections in order to undo the legal protections. Vote your way out of it. That's what they would like. I mean, the ultimate solution for the left would be to have as many illegal aliens voting as possible so that they could run the table on all of the legislatures in the states and in the federal level, and then they could repeal the Second Amendment. And that would be legal. It would be immoral, but it would be illegal. Be legal. The thing that you can't say this often enough. The Constitution does not give us the right to keep and bear arms. The Constitution does not give us the right to free speech. Those rights are inherent in our birth. Those are inherent in everybody's birth. The Constitution provides American citizens with legal restraint on the government taking away those pre-existing rights. And if you don't get that, then you're missing the best part of it. So, hope that helps. Oh, just for fun, I've been listening to you ever since I stumbled upon Best Speech of 2012. That's where I predicted Donald Trump 2 days after Mitt Romney lost to Barack Obama. He's got a link here, but if you haven't seen it, that's me. It's me off my meds, basically. I was asked to do impromptu comments in early November of 2012, and I was on fire that night. That's me. I really had a good time. 100% unrehearsed. I didn't even know I was going to be given any time until about 10 minutes before I went on. I just plugged into the silver trumpet upstairs, and that was really fun. That was the Michelle Bachmann dinner, yeah. So if you search for it, it's Best Speech of 2012, Bill Whittle, and I'm very fond of that because I was genuinely angry. I wasn't angry about the election. I was angry about that, really, but the real beast comes out because we were pretty close to the Benghazi thing, and the Benghazi thing made me genuinely furious. And for 15 minutes, I got to be president of the United States. So that's what eventually got on to start the virtual presidency thing. So there we go. Road Rider, got to thank Eric Blake for his work on the forum. Got to thank Bill for his recent work on Empire of Terror, one of his best works and undoubtedly his most influential. Thank you. Got to believe there's so many freaking questions ahead of mine that there's no way he'll have a chance to get all the way down here. Well, here we are. So I guess I'm writing for the next late to the party poster. Question. See, miracles can happen. How would Bill advise President Trump when it comes to Operation Warp Speed and the vaccine, meaning debating a potential RFK? Since Bill is never going to get down here to read this, I'm all open for forum contributors to chime in. You're freaking smart people with good ideas. It'd be a pleasure to read your thoughts on this. And Joe Roth, I see your AI-generated Joe, and I raise you an AI-generated Nancy. This is going to be horrifying. Oh, dear. Oh. Eye bleach. You can't unsee it. Okay. So, hey, how about that, Road Rider we got here? How would I advise President Trump when it comes to Operation Warp Speed and the vaccine? Well, just a moment ago I said if you are a really good player, you don't need to cheat. People who need to cheat are people who are bad players. Donald Trump is excellent at some things. He's excellent at a lot of things. And one of the things that he's excellent with is rhetoric. So if I was advising President Trump about the warp speed thing, if I understand the question correctly, President Trump, how do you explain the mess that COVID became under your watch? How do you explain that? And if I'm Donald Trump, I would want it phrased exactly like that. I don't want it sugar-coated. Because I want to tell the truth in the answer. I want to tell the truth in the answer. So if I was facing RFK and it was a debate and I was coaching Donald Trump, I'd say, Mr. President, how is it that the COVID vaccine, the entire lockdown thing, all of this stuff, how did this thing become such a mess when you were president? How do you explain that? And then I would answer something like this. It was a mess. It was an absolute mess. And I can tell you who's responsible for it. I am. I'm responsible for it. I listened to experts because this was an extraordinarily complex subject. And I was faced with an emergency that looked like it was going to be a very serious, if not an existential threat to the country. And so I did what most people would do, which is I went to the people who were the acknowledged leaders in this extremely narrow field, and I went to them for their advice. And my mistake was I thought that they'd be acting like scientists instead of like politicians. And that's where I was wrong. I had grossly underestimated the power of the swamp. Fatally underestimated the power of the swamp. The idea that people like Dr. Fauci would be willing to not only put lives at risk, but end up taking millions of lives, people dying, millions of them, because of his ideological bent, was beyond my comprehension. It was beyond my ability to imagine. And that's why I screwed it up. I could not imagine that in a situation that serious with stakes that high, that somebody would put politics and money ahead of the people of this country. We're talking about life and death here now. Life and death. I am not a virologist. I'm the president of the United States. I'm faced with a crisis. My sensible course of action is to get the best advice from the people who know how to do this thing. And that's what I did. And I was fatally naive about this. And I was not only fatally naive about it, I was slow to react to it. I couldn't believe it. I simply couldn't believe what I was hearing. The idea that there might be inexpensive antiviral medications, not vaccines, antiviral medications that proactively could have saved hundreds of thousands of lives is so obvious that a medical doctor saying that won't work made sense to me, because I couldn't imagine anybody being that evil. I just couldn't do it. I was told that the only answer to this was vaccines. So we went ahead on the vaccines. And I'm not saying I'm a simple man. I'm just saying that I am, like most of you, a generalist. So when they said they're working on a vaccine, I thought they were working on a vaccine. But what they provided us with was not a vaccine, not by any conceivable standard definition of the term vaccine. What we got was not what they told us they were giving us. What I approved with Operation Warp Speed, what we put our chips on, was a vaccine. So since I've learned a little bit since then, let me tell you what that means. Up until the COVID vaccine, a vaccine would be, vaccines have saved billions of lives. Nothing has saved more human lives than vaccines. It is the single greatest invention in the history of the world. Absolutely incredible. And vaccines work like this. You take the antigen, the germ that you're being vaccinated against, and you either kill it or weaken it, and you inject it into your body. Once that virus, or whatever the case, in this case a virus, once that weakened or killed virus is injected into your bloodstream, your body will learn how to identify it. Now that takes some time. The reason people die is because the virus multiplies faster than your immune system can identify it. So what basically a vaccine does is, a vaccine gives you early warning. It puts a little tag on this thing called antigens, and it basically says, if you see one of these things in the future, don't think it over, just kill it. That's how a vaccine works. You take the COVID-19 virus and you weaken it, or you kill it, and you inject it into people, and since it's weakened or killed, it doesn't harm them, or at least doesn't kill them. The body recognizes this intruder, identifies it, so that when it runs into a more powerful version, a live version of it, it's prepared, and it smashes the virus before the virus can multiply. Period. That's a vaccine. That's not what they gave us. That's not what they gave us at all. What they gave us was something that altered our DNA through RNA, through messenger RNA, and started having our bodies producing spike proteins, which is the outer shell of this vaccine, of this virus. They have turned us, that invention turned us into manufacturers of virus shells. It didn't give us the weakened agent. It made us into manufacturers of the spike proteins on the outside of the cell. Now, this may or may not have worked, but it was without question experimental, and it has without question had the kind of results that would never, ever, ever have flown with a vaccine. In a traditional vaccine like we saw with SARS or whatever, if 6 people died, that was it. Black box on the vaccine, it is killing people, we got to stop. But that's not what we got here at all. At all. It was a planet-wide experiment on human beings by people who had the hubris to believe that they could fix a problem that they started in the first place. So, yes, that's why it was such a bloody mess, because I could not imagine, it was beyond my ability to imagine that, first of all, somebody would take those kind of risks that Dr. Fauci did by taking U.S. funds and sending it to the Wuhan virology lab where this virus came from, either intentionally or accidentally. They're not well known for their quality control, you may be aware of. The Chinese look up the term tofu dreg if you don't believe me. So the idea that people would, against U.S. law, create these things in the first place, tailor them specifically to be contagious to humans by combining monkey vaccines with spike proteins, give them this enhanced gain of function, and then hope that it doesn't get loose. And then when those same people find out it did get loose, the idea that they would push for more money and more of their solutions to this problem, when on the table, over-the-counter drugs would have done an astonishingly better job of mitigating this catastrophe. I could not believe that medical doctors could be that evil. I couldn't believe it. I believe it now, though. I believe it now. And I will tell you this, they're not going to get away with it again. So, yeah, that's how I screwed that up. I think if Donald Trump came out and said that, it'd be a no-brainer. Now, Lord Bios has been kept me out of so much trouble during the coronavirus first days, and he's an expert in this. He's worked on recombinant DNA vaccines, and he understands that this, if I understand it correctly, that this entire idea is to create an immune response against all of these potentially fatal viruses. We're not taking COVID-19, weakening it, and injecting it. We're going to try and go after the spike proteins. If we can get the body to defend against that, then we're granting immunity to any spike protein disease, virus. That's the best case scenario. I'm willing to give him that. Lord Bios strikes me as a man of great integrity and has been very kind to me. And he works on this and believes in it. But I don't think there's much doubt about what I just said. I personally believe that a person of integrity like Lord Bios would have handled things differently. And certainly, regardless of what you want to say about the detail of the vaccine itself, spike proteins are different between each virus. Oh, so, but the technology, right? The RNA technology should be able to be relatively easy. In other words, if they could make this procedure work for COVID-19, then it would work against other spike protein viruses, if I understand it correctly. It'd be very hard to make a vaccine against all viruses. Yeah, that seems like it makes sense. But that is presumably the argument for it, right? I mean, I think that's the argument. I don't want to get too bogged down in this, although I certainly don't want to be, incorrect about things. But I think that in terms of the basics, I felt like I got most of that right. And if I didn't, I would like to correct myself, because I don't like being wrong. I especially don't like being wrong when I'm in the company of somebody who knows if I'm wrong or not. That's essentially what I would have said at Donald Trump's thing. Maybe I didn't even get into the vaccine thing in the whole place, because frankly, you don't even need the vaccine to answer your question about how Donald Trump should handle it. Dr. Fauci knew that face masks were useless. Useless. He admitted this in the beginning, and then later he reversed his policy because it suits them to have people locked up and not being able to see other people's faces. They're useless. And Florida proves that the lockdowns had essentially no effect, because California had California was the most locked down state, Florida the least, and Florida had a somewhat better survival rate or infection rate. So there's your evidence. Let me see. So Lord Bio says, presumably, yes, the vaccine would have your own cells make the viral protein and mount an immune response. So, like as the waves. See, this is a great audience. This is why I'm so pleased. The mRNA also may undergo reverse transcription, a process known 20 years before 2020. Reverse transcriptions involve the modified RNA reversing itself into DNA inside the nucleus of the cell. I just am so honored and pleased to be dealing with people who can have this conversation on this level, in goodwill, because that vitriol was aimed at Fauci and Newsom, and certainly not at the people who've done their very best to educate me on a very complex subject. So we'll see. Watch Dark Horse and John Campbell on YouTube. I've been following. They know what they're talking about. Like is the Wave's a great name, by the way. Also sounds like he knows what he's talking about. Of course, I sound like I know what I'm talking about, so there's your evidence that doesn't prove a damn thing. Okay, back to the quiet thing. I might have gotten them all. I'm not going to do both. Lately, there have been ads when I watch your videos. It's Bob Knife again. When I watch your YouTube videos, do you know why there are ads now and there weren't for years? Hopefully, you're getting some of the revenue. I get revenue for ads on YouTube. And if you didn't get them before and you're getting them now, the only way I know to get rid of them is to have YouTube Premium, which I fought tooth and nail because I didn't want the idea of paying the people that are censoring me $20 a month or whatever it is, bothered me. And then I realized, you know what? I'm wasting so much time with these commercials, and the cash flow is my way anyway. So instead of me paying them, they're paying me $20 less than they pay me otherwise. So a lot of people talking high praise about this Dark Horse podcast. So I'll go look that up and subscribe to that and see if I can find out about that. Jacob Belchik, Eric Blake. Okay, so we're going to do Jacob Belchik, and then that'll do it. Because Eric, we got one of you in there. I think I'll make sure I can get another Jacob Belchik. It's so hard to keep this straight when you got so many smart people. I think we do Jacob, and I'll call it a night. Okay. Hail Bill, hail Jacob. Third time's the charm, so they tell me I don't like it getting to the third time. We will try our best. Marusha says if he had YouTube Premium or certain browsers like Brave and now he didn't, or it expired, that might explain it. You might have an ad blocker or something that might have expired or needed to be updated or something. But if something suddenly changed, it's not on my end. Third time's the charm. Over the years, I've developed a general political heuristic that has served me very well. I call it the 180-degree principle. In short, the idea is that whatever principle is being pushed by the left, the truth is almost certain to be exactly in the opposite direction. Amen. For instance, there's almost no organized pushback against the flat earth movement, besides being used as a pejorative for people that doubt their government, but there was intense and aggressive censorship of anyone who questioned the medical decision-making of the U.S. government in 2020 to 2022. If you're taking flack, you're over the target after all. Couldn't agree more. Broadly employed, this heuristic leads to some difficult conclusions, but they've held up pretty well. Key to this is the understanding that people who are willing to lie to you about one thing are almost certainly willing to lie to you about other things. Amen. And after you've had a track record of being wrong over and over and doubling down in the face of your wrongness, your odds of being right about anything plummet. Yes, so much of what the left says now, the progressive left, is not just untrue, it's anti-true. I think that's a good way of putting it. It's not just untrue, it's anti-true. What do you think of this? Do you think there's any principle on the left that's worth holding on to? I know this kind of thinking leads to a polarized society, but the more I learn about Lenin and company, the more the idea of any kind of compromise with that thought process at all, and especially the men that serve it, make me ill. So you brought Lenin into this, so I can probably make relatively quick work of this, I think, Joe. First of all, you're right. Jacob, sorry, Jacob. Yes, they are antithetical to the truth. And the reason, I think, is not an intellectual one, because there is no intellectual excuse. There's a very powerful emotional driver involved that acts on the psyche of progressives. And this emotional driver is, number one, a general orientedness and an absolute inability to be seen as a member of the great unwashed. So if everybody believes that the sun comes up in the morning, then you are inclined to believe that no, it doesn't. Just out of sheer orneriness, the unwillingness to be seen as a normal, regular person because they're so special, is a big part of their psychological motivation. But it gets more specific than that. The thing that Lenin has in common with modern progressives and all of the green-haired social justice warriors and all the rest is that they put theory above practice. They actually believe that the theory is more reliable than the evidence, than the data, than the world. If they are drawing a map of a coastline and they say that this map, on their map, there should be a river delta there, and they look outside and look at the coastline and see instead, no, it's a mountain range, then they're convinced the coastline is wrong. They are so imprisoned in intellect that they cannot get out of it. And so anything that appeals to them intellectually is real. And anything that they don't like isn't real. Lenin had this belief that he used as a fig leaf. He believed that he was bringing justice to the people of Russia who had been very, very unjustly treated under the Romanovs. No question about that. And Lenin believed this, his whole heart. But what Lenin really wanted was power. He inverted Marxism in order to get power, and if he could have gotten power in any other method, he would have done it. He said, I will do anything, destroy anything, including the Russian nation and its people, in order to protect the revolution. He makes it sound like protect the revolution of the proletariat, but what it really was, the revolution of the Bolshevik Party, which means the revolution of Lenin as ultimate power. And so if you believe that your theory trumps reality, then you can do all kinds of things that make 180 degrees away from sense. You can endlessly print money and think that's never going to hurt you in any way, shape, or form. You can genuinely believe that a man who wants to be a woman, feels like a woman that day, is a woman, and genuinely believe that he has no advantages whatsoever over a biological female. Once you buy into the idea that theory is more important than reality, then everything is free after that. Everything. Which is why I think they fight, why I think they're fighting and dying on this transgender hill. Because if they can convince you that the most obvious statement of reality that is available to our senses, in other words, that individual is male or female, if they can convince you that that is your lying eyes, and that what they're telling you is more true than what your own lying eyes are telling you, if they can convince you that you can't tell what a woman is, that you have to be a biologist to be able to define what a woman is, if they can convince you of this, they can convince you of everything and anything. It is the ultimate test of your compliance to theory. It's the ultimate case of the emperor's new clothes. All the smart people believe that transgender athletes have no advantage over male to female transgender athletes have no advantage over female athletes. All the smart people believe this, and so if you don't believe it too, then you're not a smart person. And you secretly believe that you're not a smart person. You secretly know that you're not really that smart. You don't want people to know that. So instead of thinking about it yourself, you say what the smart people that you perceive to be smart people say, and you stay there. And you don't ever take a chance on being alone. Really smart people don't mind being alone in a crowd of one person in 300. If they're a single voice in a room of 5,000 that says, no, hold on, this is not true. It's provably false. Smart people are not afraid of that. Because smart people, worst case scenario, will be shown to be wrong. And then a smart person will say, well, I guess I was wrong about that. Thank you. Now I'll go stand over where the truth is. But for people who want to be smart and who expect to be smart and who like to be looked at as being smart and aren't really that smart, they can't take that kind of risk. It's way too risky for them. So they have to believe the theory. And when the theory confronts reality and they are antithetical to each other, the definition of a conservative and a liberal is a conservative believes what nature is showing us to be true, and a liberal believes what they want to be true. Which is why you end up with this particular conundrum. I think I came up with this myself. I think it's rather pithy. A liberal is somebody who would rather do harm to people as long as it felt good and looked good, while a conservative is somebody who would rather do good for people even if it made them look or feel bad. It's all about the actual outcome. Conservatives talk about things like eliminating welfare, not because they hate people on welfare, but because they know that welfare destroys people's lives. It's tough love. It's the way out. There is no easy way out. It's like the healthcare argument. If healthcare were free, I'd be in favor of free healthcare, but there's not. Dependency is not something I can wish away. Get people off of dependency hurts. It's going to hurt a lot because we're going to have to be dealing with it. It's going to be very, very, very painful. And Bone Canoe says, I'm not dumb enough to claim that I'm smart. And the reverse of that is also true, Bone Canoe. Smart people are the first people to say, I'm sorry, I don't understand. What does that mean? I've never heard that word before. That's real intelligence. Whenever somebody hits me with something, what do you think about that? I'm sorry, I don't know what that is. I'm not worried that people are going to think I'm an idiot. I'm pretty much assured they already have that established. Once you get to that point, you're home free. Once you are willing to tell yourself, look, I believe what I believe because I've seen evidence of it. If I'm wrong, I'll change my mind. Then you're golden, man. You're golden. Nothing can touch you after that. And the first step to wisdom as opposed to knowledge is understanding that no matter what you don't know a lot more than you know. I often I don't do it so much anymore, but I used to think about this when I first started doing the public speaking and stuff, and I thought, what if, I was, late 50s, and what if 75-year-old Bill comes back to me in a time machine and says to 55-year-old Bill who's doing the speech in 2012 or whatever, hey, Bill, you're wrong about all this stuff. My first response would be, okay, two possibilities here. Future Bill is either lying or he's telling the truth. If future Bill is lying, then something catastrophic has happened to me between now and then, and there's that. If future Bill is telling the truth, however, that I am wrong about all these conservative ideas, turns out the progressives are right, then I'm going to want future Bill to tell me how future Bill came to the conclusion that 50-year-old Bill is wrong. There it is right there. Rough Riding says, show me where I'm wrong. Make me understand where I'm wrong. I'm a reasonable guy. I'm not going to present unreasonable arguments. If future Bill is convinced that everything I knew was wrong, and by the way, I've been through this once, that's why I called my blog Eject, Eject, Eject. I was a liberal in college. That's not the same thing as what a left-winger is today. I was always pro-military, pro-business, pro-America, but I believed passionately in things I knew nothing about. Now, if I'd had the chance to sit down with President Bill could have taught college Bill why he was so wrong about so many things. And so the onus is on future Bill. If future Bill comes and says to me, you're wrong about all this, then I'm going to want to know why. And if I'm wrong about this, then future Bill should have no problem explaining to me why. And if I change my mind in the future, then I'd be willing to change my mind in the present, but you'd have to give me a reason. And so there you go. And that's why that's not ever going to happen, because the flexibility, the mental flexibility of knowing that you might be wrong inoculates you against error. It doesn't mean you're never wrong. It just means that you're never wrong. It just means you never know you're wrong. So there you go. Eric Blake says, the problem, Bill, is that so many conservatives are so confident in how we're the rational ones that they get too stubborn to tweak and improve their methods, etc. Case in point, never Trumpers. Yeah. And he also goes on to say, so it's not as simple as our side is open to be corrected. I can't speak for other conservatives. I'm always willing to be corrected. And if somebody can prove that something, first of all, I've never lied. I can tell you all with 100% honesty, I have never, ever lied, ever, about anything. I'm not saying I've never been wrong, but I've never been knowingly wrong. And most of the time I'm not wrong either. Because if I am, I move. If I think the truth is here and somebody says no, the truth is over there and they can prove it to me, I'll move. That's why I'm never wrong. I think that might be it. I think we might have done it. I know there's another Eric, but I don't really feel like I can. Let's see what we got here. Okay, I'll take this one just because I said I did. So we'll go to Eric Blake again, who actually deserves a second question because he's been so kind about collating all this stuff and archiving it and all the rest of it. So Eric Blake again. So Bill, one of the big points Michael Knowles has been making lately is all the loads of spaghetti the Democrats have been throwing against the wall this election cycle should prove beyond a reasonable doubt that they're not the slightest bit confident that they could steal November again. Trump's so far ahead, in other words, that he's beyond the margin of fraud. That is... Did I actually say that? Bone Canoe says, one of my favorite Bill quotes. I think I must have said it. It sounds like me. I'm happy to be wrong, which is why I'm very rarely happy. And thank you, Lapco92. And I still haven't got the big DVT, but I'm going on vacation, so I'll take it with me. So maybe I'll get a chance to watch it when we go. 1, 2, 3. It's sitting on the desk right here, and I'll see if I can go load it up. So back to Eric again. Like you said, Bill, they could only pull a Pearl Harbor once. Heck, the new RNC leadership, including co-chair Lara Trump, have proclaimed a new emphasis on poll watching, and I think we can assume this includes bringing swim trunks in the event of a broken water vein. That said, you've also said no second Pearl Harbor doesn't mean no different sneak attack. Tim Pool has been talking about a recent news story about a sizable number of Texan voters discovered to be very dead, so he theorizes that this could mean the Dems' next sneak attack is giving illegals the voter IDs of dead people. So then, Bill, what's your 2 cents on all this? Well, if we know they're dead, that means that we have the means of knowing that they're dead. So you can give dead people's credentials to illegals, and if we know that they're dead, then they're still dead. The question isn't, they can't give illegals living voters identification. So it's just a question of, do we want to enforce the rule? Is there going to be a guy at the gate taking tickets? When somebody comes to vote, is there going to be somebody saying, show me your ID, show me your registration, show me you are legally enabled to vote? So I'm not really... The problem is not that they're giving voter IDs to people who shouldn't have them. The problem is nobody's checking at the gate, or at least they weren't before. I think that's going to be very different this time. It's a very reassuring argument that Mike is making there. And I think there's a lot of evidence, a lot of truth to it. I am going to be doing. I talk about this briefly on my right angle, which is not up yet. I'm going to stretch those out because I'm going to be gone for a couple of days, but I'll be talking about this quite a lot. So there's this guy, and we'll wrap it up with this, that I've been put in touch with, named Robert Epstein. Robert Epstein is a distinguished American psychologist, researcher, professor, author, and journalist. Robert Epstein is the guy that analyzes the amount of influence that big tech has on elections. Robert Epstein says that undecided voters often are swayed by a single ad or a single ping or a push at the last minute. This is from his little booklet I've got here. He says that if you type in the words Hillary Clinton is, you type this into the Yahoo search engine, into the search field. You don't push the button. You just type in Hillary Clinton is in Yahoo in 2016. These are the results he got from his research. The results came back as follows. Hillary Clinton is a liar. Hillary Clinton is a criminal. Hillary Clinton is evil. Hillary Clinton is a crook. Hillary Clinton is corrupt. Hillary Clinton is a witch. Hillary Clinton is the devil. Hillary Clinton is stupid. Hillary Clinton is ugly. Hillary Clinton is a joke. If you type Hillary Clinton is into the Bing search results, you get Hillary Clinton is a filthy liar in order. Hillary Clinton is a murderess. Hillary Clinton is she evil. Hillary Clinton is a lying crook. Hillary Clinton is she's in trouble. Hillary Clinton is power hungry, and Hillary Clinton is not qualified. However, 97% of the total search engines search results come from Google. If you type Hillary Clinton is in Google, you get 2 things autocorrected. Hillary Clinton is winning, and Hillary Clinton is awesome. So this guy, Robert Epstein, took the data from 2020. Prior to the election, he showed what Google was doing, and he sent the data to Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz then went with 2 other senators and sent a letter to the president of Google saying, can you explain this? And then Epstein said that the second that they got that letter, they turned off the bias. They just stopped it cold because they realized that they'd been caught and that this guy Epstein had the receipts. He had hundreds of thousands of screen grabs and so on and so on. The reason I bring it up now is he says in the 2020 presidential, that was 2016, 2020 says, we preserved 1.5 million searches. That's the operational line right there. We preserved. The reason that we didn't see any action in 2020 was because we didn't have any legally overwhelming arguments, and you needed evidence, and you needed overwhelming evidence to do something that destructive. Okay? So in 2020, he says, we preserved 1.5 million searches and other online experiences from 1,735 registered voters in the four most critical swing states. Once again, we identified a significant liberal bias in Google search results, enough to have shifted more than 6 million undecided votes to Joe Biden. So what Epstein is saying is he's not even talking about voter fraud. He's talking about voter manipulation. He's saying, let's just assume for the sake of the argument that every single ballot is authentic. I don't believe that for a second. But what he's saying is that's not where the tampering is. He's saying that by Google sending negative items about Trump and positive items to Clinton, it could have moved, he thinks it did move 6 million votes about Biden rather than Clinton. So here's a little block quote. This is what Epstein's conclusion is based on statistical analysis. If Google had not interfered in the 2020 election, Mr. Trump would have won 11 of 13 swing states rather than 5, which would have guaranteed him the presidency. He goes on to say that in 2022, they saw the same thing, and he said they preserved 2.5 million online experiences in 2022, and he says if Google had refrained from intervening in the midterms, the GOP would not have been left with a 2-seat minority. Instead, they would have secured a majority in the Senate ranging from 2 to 8 seats and a majority of 27 to 59 seats in the House. So if Google wasn't manipulating just the search results, just that, we would have President Trump's second term coming to an end, and we would have a large majority in both the House and the Senate. So the reason I bring this up is because this is ongoing. He says right now we have 13,000 participants across 50 states, and he's got an organization called Digital Shield, and anybody can participate. It's not based on your political leanings. It's basically just getting the receipts. So it's americasdigitalshield.org, and you can go there, and they will basically, essentially, you become a Nielsen family. You become just a user, an internet user whose input is being monitored. You're fully aware that you're being monitored. That's why you're signing up. And the fact that Google backed down when confronted with receipts is very encouraging to me. Very encouraging. One of the points that Epstein makes, and I think it's a really important part, oh, Steve, whoop, you're an evil man, is this. He says it's much, much easier to prevent fraud than it is to overturn a stolen election. So, amen to that. americasdigitalshield.org. You should go and check it out. And I'll be doing a lot more on that in the weeks and months to come. So there you go. Alrighty, 9 o'clock's coming up on 3 hours. I did not, Marusha. If you want to send it again, I kind of just got a little busy, I suppose. Anyway, I think we're done. So we did all right. We got a lot of questions and had a fun time. Here's my Sapien t-shirt. For those of you who didn't get to see it. Sapiens. Watch out, man. Humanity. F yeah. So there we go, and I'll keep you updated on when I'll be back and all the rest of it. So hopefully a little break. I'll reset the circuit breakers and get back to work. Swinging hard. This show is made possible by the members of BillWhittle.com. Thank you so much for all the kind words there, Craig and everybody else who keep the light on and who we're very grateful to constantly on a constant basis. And thanks for the kind words about Bean and Natasha and all the rest of it. We will see you here conceivably on Friday night, a week from tonight, but it seems unlikely, but it's at least possible depending on when I get back. but we'll definitely be here the following Monday. So there you go. Okay, so thanks for joining us. Twitch, we'll say goodnight to you first. So we will see you at the very least a week from Monday. And until then, keep your powder dry, and we'll talk to you soon. Okay, YouTube, let's have a talk. Thanks for joining us. Great to be here. Appreciate all the support and everything, and for all the people watching, thanks very much. And we'll see you guys in a week or so.